Hello, everybody, and welcome to something new, something different. This is YouTube Yammerings, is what I'm going to call it, because this is what I thought I was going to call it way back when. I don't remember when. I thought about doing this like a while ago to copy basically Kyle doing his digest. And anyway, I think what's more important here is that I know it feels really, really good when someone talks about your work from a perspective of someone who also makes that type of stuff. And giving tips or appreciating certain things about it that no one else, that general audience don't really talk about in the comments. You know, lots of time in the comments, at least for my videos actually, it varies because lots of people goes, oh, really cool editing, nice stuff. And they'll point out certain things. I'm glad they've noticed it. But a lot of the time when people who, there's more subtle editing tricks done that people don't really point out and they actually, engaging with the content of the video, like the points you're making and so on. But it's not always, I guess, what people really, really like about it. Or they don't always notice the other periphery stuff that goes into making a good piece of YouTube content in an artistic sense. And as someone who loves making YouTube videos and consumes a lot of YouTube media, I've been, watching YouTube for 11 years now. I've been making YouTube videos for 11 years now on multiple different channels. This is just something that I've, developed a really, really keen enjoyment of, and I really want to give some feedback on certain things that people do. And I'll talk a bit about the content. I'm sure I will. I've got my mug, my Pokemon mug. It was bought by my friends from Japan, so respect to them. It's really cool. Anyway, that aside, let's start with Myre. Myre's video is going to be a unique one because I'm not going to be watching the actual videos that he's made because it's him more talking about certain points. Just to get the peripheries out of the way, Myre, you've got a new mic. Rip to the toaster mic. In 200 video, you hadn't set it up quite correctly. If I remember correctly, you're speaking to the top of the blue Yeti, I think it's called. But now you're speaking to the front of it, and I think that's really good. One thing I'd like to remark is that from here on out, the cost of your putting into your audio equipment will receive probably diminishing returns. To be totally honest, you probably don't need to upgrade. Same thing with Kyle and his quadcast mic that he recently just got. You will not need to upgrade further. I could be, I'm not sure if I would have chosen those microphones after doing my own research into certain things, but they're actually really, really adequate. And the mic I've got now is different, but it's like in the same price range as USB. You don't really need XLR, in my opinion. Maybe a bit of a hot take, but I think most of the time it's fine. Now, you will need mic for different situations before recording voiceover and spoken word. These will be fine. Like, if you're going to sing, of course, or if you're trying to do an interview, of course, right? But this is different things. All right, so let's go with 200. First things first. Let's engage with the actual content first, and then I'll give up like what I'm excited for Myre content in the future. First things first, you talk about in 200, you talk about Stirk being less interesting, which I think is a funny phenomenon when characters who are mysterious end up not being as mysterious. Or like, basically when you're reading something and you have lots of time to engage between installments, you have to wait a long time before you get the answers to the mystery. Oftentimes, it's not always that satisfying in a weird way. Attack on Titan did this well and didn't do this well. So spoilers for Attack on Titan. I think the idea of what was in the basement was really, really satisfying as a mystery, right? And despite being built up for a very long time, though I did kind of binge it all, right? And that was the mystery of seeing what was in the basement really didn't matter to me. Like, that was like a big narrative hook to get into Attack on Titan. But where it does stumble is with Eren's characterization, where not necessarily, I'm not saying that, Eren's writing was bad, but when he changed, lots of people like, oh my word, he's so mysterious, he must have all these big brain plans, but eventually you hype yourself so much that, eventually falls flat in the end when they're revealed for their actual motivations. And I think this is a smaller scale version of Stirk. We're not sure how Stirk is, but I think for a while I've already thought that, yeah, Stirk is here helping his best bro living his best life. Sorry, you're gonna get all the sip sounds. But yeah, and that's it. It's very very basic, very very simple. And I think in some with chapter 200, we'd expect Stuck to be smarter, but it was always there. I think I comment in my chapter 186 video that Stuck should have recognized that. Well, I assume that Stuck is smarter than he is because I'm like, well, of course Stuck would probably guess that Thorfinn's seen war and battle. Like he's probably pretty experienced due to the scars on Thorfinn's hands and body and stuff. You know, Thorfinn doesn't need to tell you for you to recognize that. But I think ultimately Sturk and Ivar are just so inexperienced in war, and they just assume, oh, this guy was a victim of war, and that's why he doesn't like it. Not necessarily that he was part of it and joining in the fun, if you will. Yeah, yeah. Back onto the whole mysterious character thing. It is something that Brandon Sanderson talks about in like his first lecture of writing, which I remember watching back in, you know, when they popped up in the pandemic 2020. Actually, he kind of talks about how setting expectations and controlling the expectations of your audience is really really important, and that is, I think that's very very true. It's like that's a way to like everybody will, if people expect the best thing ever, nothing will meet that, and then they'll be disappointed. Even if like it's just like relative. If your expectations are up here and you make something like this good, right? It's not meeting their expectations. But if you set your expectations here and then you just get above them, that makes all the difference. I remember before exams, you know, my mate would be like, oh, just psych yourself into thinking you're getting a bad grade, and that any grade you get, you'll be like happy with it. So like, even if you do, like after doing the exam, think, oh yeah, I got a B on that one. I did a good job there. If you say, oh no, I think I did really badly, I got a D, and then when you get that B, it feels even better. If that makes sense. It's kind of a weird thing. I also want to talk about Hild going into the wilderness. I wonder if she's going to use maybe the bear, the god of the forest, the bear god of the forest, Muawin. I think that's the Mi'kmaq spirit that they're probably talking about, Muawin. I wonder if she'll disguise herself as that, or the shaman will somehow interpret the bear as that, or something like that. That is kind of interesting. I don't think it'll be super plot relevant in that, like the actual spirit will come up and convince the shaman otherwise. That would make a lot of people very angry. But it would be interesting if Hild maybe even played into that role of somehow, or if Hild met the god again or something, is brought back up. Maybe it would be, maybe it's not. I don't know what Yukimi wants to do with this, but I thought it'd be a good, interesting idea. She becomes the goddess of the forest, and everybody's like, oh, there's an evil spirit haunting the forest. Don't go in there unless, you know, you want to die, because, you know, if you have bad intentions of going to that forest, Hild will come and get you, but they don't think it's Hild, they think it's the god of the forest. There could be an interesting thing in there. Pulmug dying. I thought it was an interesting point. I think Pulmug does have a big role. Well, not big role, but I want to see him get in there a little bit. You know, we've seen his athleticism talked about a little bit. We've seen, you know, various things from him. I think we'll see more. He clearly has a massive role to play in terms of like thematically him really engaging with the Norse culture and you know, accepting it, which I think is interesting. Yeah. And then chapter 200, I thought it was interesting how you kind of talk about, mainly how you're talking about how both Canute and Thorfinn will fail. I never really kind of quite thought about it like this, because I always thought, yeah, Canute is clearly doing it the wrong way, and Yukimura is trying to say that. But the fact that and I think thematically they'll probably go that way in the end, but the fact that both Canute and Thorfinn will fail, and there's like almost like a weird parallel there, it's like interesting. Like the best day plans of mice and men will often go astray. Awry? I'm not quoting that poem correctly, but yeah. It's by a Scottish poet, and it's what of mice and men gets this name from, I think. And then you got the Willibald idea with ending, which definitely caught my attention, as you know. Of course it will. I think I really this kind of gets into future Myre content. People who are listening to this, I don't think it'll be many, so I don't think they're mind leaking. But if you're going to do this big scripted video, it's tough doing long scripted videos. I'll let you know that now. It takes a long time. Voice recording is tough. That stuff is like death, man. But the thing is, people like VinHard, I offered my help to, but VinHard didn't need my help, and he's done an absolutely phenomenal job without me looking at the scripts and giving aid or consulting at all. He has a clear vision of what he wants to say, and me, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't be either. So I'm really looking forward to what you have to say here and linking it together. I think it's interesting how you say that, Willibald may appear again with Canute because of what happens in Planetes and how it links there with the priest and stuff and that. I think that's a really fascinating idea. I think it'll be really cool. As a Yukimura fan, that's a Pog moment. And as a Willibald fan, I want it. And I'd be really interesting to see if you could pull any more thematic things out of that. But I don't know why it would be, like, what Willibald as a character would do that someone like Wolf wouldn't be able to fulfill. But I'm all for it. If it happens, I think it'll be interesting regardless, because there'll be something probably to chew on if Willibald turns back up, because he's very much like making a thematic point. But I feel like he's already made his thematic point and it's probably going to be not back. But I could be wrong. All right, so last time I talked about Myre, I went on a bit of a rant about how I thought the mics, people need to not get so hyped about the mics and stuff or something. I don't know. I was talking about that. Whoa, there's my hair. Anyway, last time I actually stopped recording. I don't know why I'm talking about this stuff. I'm redoing this recording because the audio sounded awful in the first one. Anyway, Myre, if you need help, if you want any help on not necessarily scripting, or if you want to kind of piece ideas together, honestly, I'm going to be using this for a video coming up. When I've got so many scattered thoughts, get out a spider diagram, a bubble diagram, start linking stuff together and just writing the points down on paper in small ways, and then try and combine it together. There are loads of different ways, scripting styles, but ultimately you just have to grind it out a little bit and then refine it. And basically, what you eventually need to get to, you need to get to a block of content where it's like a block of marble, and then start chipping away. And that's when it gets easy, because you're like, oh, I can use this, I can use that. That's kind of, I want to say this. You can kind of piece it together more easily. And my fan just went off in the background. I just realized that would have been, you'd be able to hear that. But yeah, that's what I'll say for you, Myre. Really, really good stuff, man. You're really consistently doing this. And I mean, I always like these thumbnails and how you use them. I always think it's cool. Yeah, fantastic. And so next, we are going to be doing, let's go to Sichlitt. I will call him Sichlitt by accident lots of the time. What do I think about this video? First things first, I don't think any commentary I'll be really giving. I think I'll be probably jumping through this video a little bit faster than usual. And I think I'm going to be a bit critical here. But I want to say, really well done on getting another scripted video out there. Look at this dislike ratio. But you probably got some interesting comments in the bottom. Griffith did nothing wrong. This is controversial stuff. But I think overall, you've made your point really, really strongly and solidly. You've also given decent counter arguments. And, I didn't think, there's only really one thing I have qualms with. And I'll probably get to it later. But I want to comment on your overall style first. Also, I watch everything on 2x speed, but definitely for this, I'm going to be watching it 2x speed through. And slowing down and speeding up when I feel need to. Violent emotional response you get from Berserk fans at the mere mention of the character's nuances and sympathetic motivations means that people like me who defend Griffith's actions can never get a word in, and we're constantly confined to the outskirts of the community, ostracized by all. I was saying, there's something about Sichlitt videos and his style that, like, this part is like, I feel like intentionally cringy to me. You start with The Sopranos in a way, which kind of has, you also have the American Psycho later, which is like that Sigma male grind set, which is kind of funny. Then you have Poe out of nowhere, and this actually enlightened something in my head. And I had it on camera last time when I had this epiphany, but audio screwed, sadly. You know, you remind me, and maybe it's because your name's Sichlitt as well, but you remind me of Shay Frillis Productions, that YouTuber who does a lot of the DreamWorks and all that stuff, which I think is like just how you sound. Yeah. And let me go back to something like Myre. Myre's been bringing up again and again. I don't know if Myre will watch this, but Myre's voice, despite being an American accent, still feels quite unique to me. But the issue with this is that this video feels very, very generic. And I think that's the style you're going for, and it's like funny from like my perspective watching it as someone who knows it's a bit of a gag that you do an American accent. But it's like there's very little coherency in the editing style that you're using. Like you'll use, you know, live action movies, you'll use anime, you'll use animation, you'll use manga panels, then you'll use paint drawings later on. It's kind of all over the place, and there is a wholesome, like nostalgic vibe to that, which is fine. It just doesn't make it feel like a unique video. Oh, this is a Sichlitt style video. This is like his vibe. Now, I'm not saying that I found my style or my vibe straight away. I'm not saying this is what you should try and do at all. There's not in any way, shape, or form. Just checking that the recording's still going. I don't think it's a bad thing that you've got this style going on. But I just wanted to remark on how generic it feels.
And at first glance, this reaction is understandable. The sheer weight of the horrific actions Griffith went through with, and the pain and suffering caused by the countless people he affected, makes it really hard for a lot of audience members to see him as anything but an irredeemable monster, whose evil had always been there from the start. This makes it incredibly difficult for them to analyze Griffith from any kind of objective position, and the visceral emotional response at any mention of his name make it essentially social suicide to make any kind of attempt to spread the honest truth about him. That is, human Griffith is not accountable for any of the horrors of the eclipse. I can already hear the keyboards typing, but hold your horses.
So first of all, there's a couple things. I like how you kind of strongman people's arguments and try and empathetically connect with them. And it feels like you are kind of in between a line of like going into old school KyleEntertainment, where he's being antagonistic and trying to, you know, start a fight because he's really cool and tsundere like that. But then you've also got, you know, like you've kind of taken off the irony mask a little bit and actually genuinely try to connect with some people and be like, hey, that's very honest, you know, I understand where you're coming from there, where like, you know, you know, the eclipse is horrifying and all this stuff. But then you say people take it too far and they're not listening to my perspective. And I think that naturally, when you're trying to be convincing, is really, really effective. If you strongman the position of why people, for example, when I made my video on like why people shouldn't hate Hild and are misunderstanding her, I want to give the strongest reasons for why someone wouldn't like Hild. You know, she says similar things. She doesn't interact with lots of people from the other cast, yada, 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 yada. Like, there's loads of reasons for why someone may not like this character, right? You want to empathize with that. And not be too jaded about that. So I thought that was fine. Also, top quality. Like, I mean, you use so many different, your clip selection while making it generic is actually really, really funny. Like, you got Diary of a Wimpy Kid there, you got Sopranos earlier. Yeah, you got this stuff. I mean, you got pictures of yourself, which I think is kind of cringe, but also very funny. Like, I think this is the point. I think you're trying to be cringy here. I don't mean to be offensive if you think this is cool. But I assume, you know, but it's just how you're looking at the camera, man. It makes me feel a certain way. I'm scared now.
To the outskirts of the community, ostracized by all. And at first glance, this reaction, a lot of Griffith from any kind of, that is, human Griffith is not accountable for any of the horrors of.
I think this font is cool. I think this is a unique font.
I can already hear the keyboards typing, but hold your horses.
Now, here's something I will hark on a little bit about. I think using, if you want a very subtle way that people don't realize, but is like consciously realize, to level up your editing is adding sound effects. That is a really, really good way. You know, music's one way, right? And, you know, cutting on the music and the beat. But if you want to really level up in the feel of something, sound effects is the way to go. I could probably use them more, but I try and use them occasionally because I normally, I guess, don't have time for that, or like I'm not really that planned out about my videos. Particularly if it's taking a long thing, it's not like meant to be like a masterpiece. So, yeah. Yeah. So.
Now, when asking a guts down whether Griffith did anything wrong, he'll usually be met.
That's the guy who's, yeah, either he should be in jail or he's in jail now.
Once in history, and then the same old diatribe about how
Yeah, you got other stuff.
Once he
So
obtained that power, his first move was to rape his best friend's girlfriend in front of him. He'll also get some bullshit about how he was always a beta and viewed his men as pawns, but I already debunked that in another video, which you will go watch right now if you haven't. And it's this part, the bargained off exchange made between Griffith and the God Hand.
now I'm not sure about how this change of font. I like how you kept it yellow, but you got two different fonts now. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Later on, I think I warm up to it, but it's just me nitpicking. Also,
Go watch right now if you
I like that a lot. I like how you say you will go watch it right now. That's a good bit of personality in there, which I think, I don't know, communicating personality in voiceover is tough because you don't want it to be overbearing. And people have different styles for that, but I think because you're trying to make such a strong argument, you're trying to keep things clean a little bit. It's nice injecting a little bit of humor in here, but also, you know, you got bigger fish to fry. You're actually trying to make this a more serious video, which I respect.
The bargained off exchange made between Griffith and the God Hand that I want to focus on in this video. You see, among Griffith haters, there's a noticeable ignorance in their understanding of contractualism and informed consent. They seem to think that the mere fact that Griffith accepted the God Hand's offer by chanting the words, "I sacrifice," proves that Griffith is accountable for the deaths of his men and everything that came afterwards, and that it's his fault. Party. Griffith, that in exchange for the sacrifice...
So I'm going to skip through this a little bit just because I don't have much to say on the actual content, and I don't want to... Yeah, I don't want to waste your time, basically. But one thing I thought was interesting is that, to me, you didn't say where the legal... you know, you mentioned the website where you got this legal stuff from, but you don't really mention, oh, what makes it, like, where in the world is this legal, where are these rules being based off, and so on. That's probably the best way of me putting it. But yeah, I think it's weird to me when you use like a legal definition to do with Berserk, but I feel like I'm out of the loop here because Berserk's world doesn't really feel like he's making a written contract, or I guess you're trying to make a real world link, but I don't know, to me that doesn't even seem to make a point. But I really don't care that much about Griffith. I don't really like have a visceral hatred towards him at all. I don't really feel much towards him at all in general. I definitely like Guts more, but I'm like a super Berserk fan, so I think I'm just a little bit out of the loop here. I'm not going to add that much, but
be granted raven black wings and the power of a god. This seems to fit the definition of mutual assent, as both parties were willing and understanding of the bargain of exchange. However, and this is a big however, there are certain limitations.
See, that works. That works there. The change of the font, that works nicely.
Of the minds, which must be addressed. Limitations that can form a good defense to a breach of contract, absolving the accepting party of all responsibility. According to a Florida law, a contract may lack consideration and validity.
Also, I want to shout out Horrid Henry right here. Gotta love that. Horrid Henry, my boy.
The vulnerability and innocence of a child means that there is such a power dynamic between a knowing adult and an unknown.
There you go, a cat in a hat. See, this is kind of funny, like, and it is like I can see the amount of effort that you went through, but to me, I don't know, it feels, it's like you could try and bind this and then kind of move on later to doing an Emp Lemon kind of style, where Emp Lemon does bring a lot of different video styles together, and different media things together, whatever, right? That kind of, and he still, but Emp Lemon has an iconic voice. I think that this is something that is so underrated. If you have an iconic sounding voice that is unique, like when I hear Emp Lemon's voice, I'm going to be like, yes, that's Emp Lemon, in a way. And I think, you know, with anybody, most people have a really unique voice, but I feel like the accent you put on isn't like unique enough. And I'm not saying I have a unique voice either. I think something that helps is that I've got my British accent, which I think can help or maybe not help, but at the same time, I also think I'm just like generic, low, grumbly, mumbly voice. So, I mean, feel free to talk on that in a little bit, but yeah.
Between them, especially sexual, is too exploitative to be considered valid. In this sense, it is even more so the relative imbalance of understanding between parties that makes an agreement coercive. And I would argue tellers and emissaries of God's will, Slan decided to gaining his trust by presenting him simple truths about his history and motivations, framing themselves as pure truth tellers and emissaries of God's will. Slan decided to manipulate Griffith by
the thing is, like, even this panel stuff, this is like super eye patch wolf stuff, or this is like what Matt Pat would do. Like, this is what adds to the feeling of it being generic. Now, this is not saying generic's bad or your editing is bad. I actually think, you know, overall the editing feels really clean. You know, not that clean, but like, it feels well put together and well thought out. And like, it may feel a little janky, but the janky is like part of the YouTube vibe. So yeah, I think that's fine. But like, I think that's something to kind of think upon. Oh, okay. It's a shame because in this moment, you were talking about he sheds his final tear, and then Griffith has his tear here, and I only made that connection when I was recording before, and I had like a big Pog moment where I was like, oh my word, like I'd never like I just put this together myself, you know, in my brain. It was like, wow, actually, you know, interesting. You know, this is the thing that I need to reread Berserk about, because then I'd probably understand like a lot of these small references more. But this is really cool. I like that he's finally shedding a tear here. And that kind of signifies something. I don't know what it really signifies. I can read into it more, but it's a big deal. I can tell it is. I assume everybody else knows this, and I don't. I assume I probably even listened to Kyle rant about it when this came out, and he was like, "Oh, look, he shed the tear, bro." Oh, mate, he shed the tear, bro. This absolutely amazing. I love that. I've got to love my Aussie accent. It's amazing. Love you showing drunk people here. Here, you're talking about...
Any treatment required in the process. They look a little dodgy, with tattoos and bad breath. Ari argues that the paralytic should be obligated to ask if there are any negative consequences to sign.
See, I thought you were saying this is what Ari looks like. I was wondering if this is offensive. I don't know. You have to take that up with Ari. Okay, so this is like maybe where I had only one qualm with your argumentation.
The contract,
And let's listen to this.
I completely agree with this, but the hypothetical doesn't fit the eclipse. You see, Griffith and the eclipse would have no reasonable cause to doubt the words of the God Hand, in the same way the paralytic person would with the billionaire. In the case of the hypothetical, the meeting of the minds hasn't been met, in even the most basic way, as there is much less of a mutual understanding of what each party will offer and receive. The billionaire offers this money with no catch, no return payment, and nothing to gain from the transaction. Therefore, the paralytic would have good reason to suspect foul play, because shady billionaires don't go offering money around for free out of the public light. With Griffith and the God Hand, there is much more of an understanding of the mutual benefits of either party. The God Hand will offer him power.
So that's an interesting, like, you have a presupposition of what a billionaire would do or what they wouldn't do. And that's why you should be, you know, unsure about them. Fair enough. But I think the God Hand is basically the same. I don't really agree that it's different. Like you...
in exchange for sacrificing all he loves dearest. That is a negative consequence in this scenario. That is the payment. That is the catch. It wouldn't even come into Griffith's mind to think, what else? Especially considering his mental state at the time. What's more, asking...
So I think this point will counteract my point prematurely. But say if Griffith was in the mental state, I don't think this like really pushes that much to get back against your argument, but I don't agree with this next part.
As a condition to the contract would be an incredibly random and unprompted thing for Griffith to say, akin to asking whether the moon would implode as a consequence of his decision. It just wouldn't enter the mind, considering Griffith knew literally nothing about the nature of apostles or God Hand beforehand.
Well, the thing is, right, if Griffith was in the right state of mind, which he's not, right, I still think he should. I still think, like, it's not out of the realm. It's like, maybe this is because I know what a genie in a bottle would do, but when you're given something to make a contract with the, like, spiritual divine beings, right, the possibilities of this are endless. Like, literally endless. They could. Why would you not think they may destroy the moon? Like, there's also a feeling of like, why do you need me? If anything, it's more exaggerated with the billionaire. It's like if a omnipotent being is giving me something, why do they need to, you know, what are they getting out of this agreement that like you could presume more? It's like with the genie. It's like the typical like genie trope is like you get 3 wishes, but you can't, you know, you have to say, okay, well, can I wish for this? Or if I wish something, I don't know if it's a narrative trope often, but like there's like consequences to what you wish for and stuff like that. Like, oh, you should be careful what you wish for and all this stuff. Right. So I feel like it is actually totally reasonable that it's in, if you're talking to a god, totally reasonable to be like, hey, they could mean literally anything else additionally to this. And I definitely check, because of the power they lord over you and the possibilities, like the fact that there's so many more possibilities of what they could do means that I'd be more wary to check if they had any actual like fine print basically on the contract.
Griffith can't be blamed for losing his empathy here, and so he can't be blamed for his rape of Casca. Everything bad that happened in the eclipse, from the death of his friends to the torture of Guts to the rape of who do listen to my words with and living their lives.
So, and then at the end here,
from both a legal and moral perspective, due to their manipulation and the
I like how you go back into like ironic cringe with.
Quite literally. Now I understand this conclusion won't be accepted by most. A lot of people are too caught up in their emotions and living their lives vicariously through Guts to see Griffith as a.
This is a cool cosplay.
But I hope that the few people who do listen to my words
and then you use
every corner of the community. Share this video around to make an effective counterbalance against the sometimes hopeless tide of Griffith slander. We can change the discourse if we try. I'm looking at you, Ascaja, ladies and gentlemen and non-binary kings. Thanks for watching the video. It's part of a broader series I'm starting in defense.
I hate
salvage from my scrapped hour-and-a-half long video responding to Griffith haters. So stay tuned for it. Bye.
Yeah, you remind me of Schaeferless Productions. There you go. I don't like Maskman. It's interesting. You kind of squash beef and then bring beef back up. I'm not sure if that's my style. But yeah. Oh dear. It's at the end of my thing. Whoop. We're going to have to go backwards. I did it again. I did this in the other one. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say, Sichlitt. I'm sorry if it's not super in-depth, but I hope you got something out of this. All right. Let's do Kyle's video.
You probably don't remember this girl from Naruto Shippuden, and if you do, die, I'm doing it.
And now, did you hear it? Did you guys hear it? Do you hear what was cool about this? I talked about earlier. Now, first things first, Kyle's got what works with Kyle's videos is that he's got an Aussie accent, and his like tone and way of speaking is very unique. I feel like his voice, I don't think I've ever heard someone who sounds like Kyle, right? I've heard someone that sounds like Ari, and I think this is a good difference here, where it's like, Ari, and this is not a slight against you, my guy, my boy. I don't even know if you listen to this part, but you just don't sound as unique. You sound more generically Australian to me. And just like Kyle's tone and stuff, I feel like he communicates his personality probably some of the best in the script and the videos that we do. For sure. Is he the best at it? Maybe. Tryhard's very good at it. Kyle's having a lot of fun with this script, and I kind of like it a lot. But let's have a look.
You probably.
I'm not sure, and this is probably not coming up in the audio. I'm going to move this up because.
You probably.
Hear that? That's really cool. I like how Kyle's getting more into the music and the audio. I think, Kyle, this is your best sounding work and how you use that, and we'll get on this later.
Probably don't remember this girl from Naruto Shippuden, and if you do, die, I'm doing a bit. She is Shiho, last name not given, and she is a minor character who appears in the pain arc of Naruto Shippuden, and she serves a cute, clever purpose in both the characterization of Shikamaru and...
So I want to say something real quick. The fact that you say Shippuden, not Shippuden, that is throwing me off majorly. I also like, you know, we go back and it's like, die.
Last name not given, and if you do, die, I'm doing a bit.
You know, it's classic Kyle ways, like being a bit of tsundere. It's good fun. Kyle in real life is a tsundere, and he's the tsundere in his videos. It does definitely show his personality a lot. Like it.
Shiho, last name not given, and she is a minor character who appears in the pain arc of Naruto Shippuden, and she serves a cute, clever purpose in both the characterization of Shikamaru and Naruto, and in the wider themes of growing up, maturing, and coming of age present in the pain arc. Let me explain. But first, we have to backtrack a bit. Jiraiya, as we know, and you probably do remember...
See, he did it here again. Black screen.
Let me explain. But first, we have to backtrack a bit.
Music, then the vocals come in. I feel like it's basic thing, but it's pop off when Kyle does it because he's finally doing it.
You probably do remember, dies fighting pain. Sad times. Throughout the fight, Jiraiya is distracted and spends most of his time...
This is the coolest thing. The closest I've been to being like, oh, let's... See, that was so cool. I love that. I think that's really smart. Like, I've done it once or twice in my videos as well, like matching up a vocal track with audio sound, and I think it's really cool here. Because it does sound like a unique line.
Legendary Renegon, and how Pain is doing all the wacky and inhumanly powerful things that he is doing. Sadly, he figures it all out too late, but he does.
Yeah, this is cool. Finished it all out too late. That's really cool. And this is the closest I've been to being like, oh, let me watch some Naruto.
Moments before his death. However, the audience is cut by dramatic flair, and before Jiraiya can communicate his discovery to Lord Fukasaku, the legendary Giza sage himself, who still remains with him at this point in the battle, in a manner that would also clue in the audience, his throat is crushed by the Asura Path. Jiraiya then, with the last of his strength, imprints on the Giza sage a secret 7-digit code and has him flee, escaping in order to carry the message back to the Leaf Village. Hopefully they, and particularly Naruto, with whom the message is meant for, armed with this knowledge, would be able to succeed where he had failed and defeat Pain. What a fella. Sad time.
I love that. I would say, Kyle, you do feel a little bit disjointed in how you say the earlier stuff, like when you're recounting it. It kind of sounds interestingly where it doesn't, like, the cuts don't move flow like super smoothly between them. But I do also kind of like, there's a vibe of like, oh, like I'm just rattling this off for you. I'm kind of bored by doing this thing, and I'm not sure if it makes me less bored. I don't know, because I don't know Naruto, but yeah, I just wasn't as engaged, and I like couldn't think about anything. But you're rattling it off kind of quickly, so I guess for like people who are being reminded of Naruto, who this is aimed for, I think that would be very helpful. But yeah.
Be able to succeed where he had failed and defeat.
Then again, I'm also listening on 2x speed, so that's part of it, maybe.
What a fella. Sad times.
Closest thing we'll ever see to Kyle crying. Yeah, that was funny. I like this a lot. I like the motif of going to back screens. And hold up.
After Lord Fuka. Sad times.
Okay, guys, hold up.
After Lord Fukusaku and the Code successfully make it to the Leaf Village, Tsunade puts Shikamaru, you know, the smart guy, on the case
Listen
and
to it,
sends
like,
him over to the Leaf
I love
analysis
this,
team
where
so
you're
they can
using
try
the
their
music
hand at
again
cracking
and all this
Code.
stuff.
That is, after all, kind of their thing. Shikamaru heads over there and talks to this old geezer. He ain't no sage, and he doesn't know shit. He says the code doesn't match up to any in the Leaf's
I feel like I've heard
but they
this
really
music
can't help
before.
without more information. Enter
I
Alpha
don't know
Girl,
where it's from
Chico.
though.
She's
I
a
assume
member
it's from
of the analysis
Naruto,
team,
but
and the way
I
that
feel like I've
Karen
heard it
manages to
elsewhere.
believe that she's about to figure it out, the code that is. But she doesn't. She simply pouts a little and says that without the key they can't help, and that she doubts they'll ever be able to decode it at all. Kind of a fucking doomer over here. I just said dramatic intro because your investment in her is heightened because of my previously manipulative title, thumbnail, and initial introduction. You really are an idiot, allowing yourself to be manipulated like that. Sad times.
Oh, I can't believe I laughed at that joke for the third time. Laughed at first time I watched it. Laughed at the second time. See, good comedy, man. It's like reusing it, like reusing the same kind of funny line you do again and again. I think because I know Kyle, like, it's even funnier. I'm not sure if people will find it that funny outside of it, but it's funny.
Hair strands out of place in a very ordinary outfit contained in her lab coat. She's a smart girl, you see. You just heard me say lab coat, right? Cryptanalysis team, right? She's got too much.
Also, I like the little meta jab where it's like, oh, now I've emotionally primed you. It has a bit of that snarky, like, haha, I'm very smart, Kyle moment, which, you know, is endearing to me.
Introduction. You really are an idiot, allowing yourself to be manipulated like that. Sad times. Shiho's a disheveled youth, with hair strands out of place in a very ordinary outfit contained in her lab coat. She's a smart girl, you see. You just heard me say lab coat, right? Cryptanalysis team, right? She's got too much to do and is too smart to care about looking kempt and pretty all the time. She's also kind of abrupt and says frankly all the time, because she knows you're an idiot and that she has to explain everything to you. And yes, I'm dumbing out over here. Frankly. All in all, she's a total hottie, bro.
Yeah, it's interesting that you once again do the frankly behind it, which is cool. I mean, it's not quite as clear this time, but yeah, no, I like it a lot. Laura Bailey also does the Lust voice acting in Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. That's pretty pog. I had to look that up last time, and I remember it for this time. Yahoo! I think she's done a ton of stuff. I think she's actually also married to the guy who voiced act Roy Mustang, which, you know, for the ship wars, you know, is crazy. Gotta love it. Yeah, it's good vibes. There's also something weird, like Carl being so upfront. Like at this time, I was like, okay, it's weird. I'm not sure if it's exactly weird because Carl's done like, oh, the hottest characters. Like he's done streams on that who he thinks is the hottest character and all this stuff. But like being like, oh, they're like so hot, bro. It is like it's something a little weird about it because I think it's like, but it's also funny because I think I just have that history with Carl as well. So.
And oh, wait, look at that. She kind of likes Shikamaru. Shikamaru explains to the cryptanalysis boss and Shiho that
it's kind of I had not got the words for it, but yeah, there's a playfulness in your voiceover here, which I really enjoy.
He'll be back later if he makes any progress. The geezer says he's tired and will be heading home, so Shikamaru will have to go there to reach it. Shiho then jumps at the opportunity and volunteers to stay behind after hours in case Shikamaru comes back, and this time they'd be all alone. After Shikamaru leaves, we noticeably see her fixing her hair in the mirror and monitoring her appearance now. That's Shiho's introductory. Her crush on
Another
Shikamaru relays into all
double
of the scenes they
uwu.
shared together throughout the rest of her brief run on the show. She's
Also,
elated when they crack the initial
I also like the animation on the hair a lot. Where she's doing it, it's very smooth.
About it, and later in the arc when Shikamaru saves her from debris after the almighty push destroys the entire village, resulting in him breaking his leg, she cries over him, guilty that it was all her fault. It's love, bro. Or at the very least, it's a very, very light crush. Now you might be thinking, a Shikamaru love interest? Why? That's kind of redundant, right? Tamari has already been set up and fleshed out much better for that distinction, and you'd be right. At least
I was saying,
he's the best.
Are you two going out or what?
And sure enough, her and Shikamaru do end up together.
okay, so Tamari does look like a Pokemon. That's what I was thinking, like the hair, but it is a cool design. I do like it.
Shiho in these little moments are in no way redundant, and that becomes evident when you ask why she's attracted to Shikamaru and why now. To properly explain that, we've got to remember where Shikamaru was at this point of the series and what has very recently happened in his life. We got to backtrack a bit. Prior to the pain arc on the Leaf Village side of the
I like this a lot. Now we didn't fade to black here.
remember where Shikamaru was at this point.
Maybe this is where the video would have been better, Kyle.
The series and what has very recently happened in his life. We got to backtrack a bit.
See, you've already said we got to backtrack.
Prior
This time you're fading to white. Maybe that's an anime footage. I don't know, but we got to backtrack a bit. I do like the whole like repeated phrases, like a motif. It's cool. I like it.
the pain arc on the Leaf Village side of the narrative, we got the Akatsuki suppression arc, featuring the immortal duo Kakuzu and Hidan. And this arc was actually primarily about Shikamaru, and Shikamaru's journey throughout it quite clearly parallels a lot of what Naruto goes through in the pain arc. Shikamaru's sensei dies in a battle with the Akatsuki, he loses his teacher and mentor and father figure and goes through a major grief period dealing with the death of somebody close to him for the first time, only to go on to mature from the experience and step into the big leagues without the guidance and the protection of his sensei and surpass him by defeating his sensei's killer, who just happens to be one of the most dangerous ninjas in the world. All in all, becoming somebody to be relied upon rather than having to rely on others. This all happens with Naruto in the pain arc. Jiraiya dies, Naruto majorly grieves for the first time, only to step into the limelight on his own, having matured as a person and a ninja, and he goes on to defeat pain, becoming the village's hero and savior and somebody to be relied upon rather than having to rely on others. But just like a lot of things, like becoming a Chunin, Shikamaru did it first, and this allows him to help and support Naruto through this process. Shikamaru displays all of this throughout the arc, but mostly during during Naruto's grieving period. Shikamaru, who is focused on solving the code and helping to prepare the village for potential further confrontation with Pain and the Akatsuki, seeks out Naruto to get his help, only to find that he is depressed and not leaving his house, and Naruto's spacing out when he asks him questions about what the code could mean. Shikamaru, having gone through this exactly not too long ago, knows what to do.
Could probably
and
skip
Naruto
through
out of the
this,
house and
but
takes him to visit Kurenai. Naruto, when he sees Kurenai-sensei, freaks out, thinking that she got fat, but Shikamaru explains that she is pregnant with Asuma's child, and through Kurenai's dialogue it's made clear that Shikamaru checks on her and looks after her all the time. Shikamaru explains further that Asuma entrusted in him to be the child's teacher, sensei, and father figure, as Asuma once was to Shikamaru. The point Shikamaru is making, and what gets through to Naruto, is that sulking won't change anything, and that they are getting to the point where they are becoming the leaders of the village, and those that need to be relied upon, as the ones they once relied upon are increasingly moving on in their lives or dying. They aren't going to be kids forever, and somebody has to step up. As Shikamaru says,
After all, we can't stay brats forever.
and this is all made more powerful by the fact that this is coming
good use of the dub, and I love this like interesting point you've got here where it's like
from Shikamaru, the laziest of all of the original Geni. That this is such a drag.
this was like a big twist to me. I was like, oh, what? This is the archetype he was beforehand. That's cool.
Who's now the most mature and responsible of them all, constantly relied on by Tsunade to take on mission after mission and important task after important task. The Pain arc is about coming of age in this sense, maturing and taking on the responsibility of being a young adult, and leaving behind childhood. Shikamaru already has. We watched it, and now it's Naruto's turn, and that's what he does. Keeping all this in mind is important when reflecting on why Shiho is attracted to this Shikamaru. Shikamaru isn't the heartthrob character that Sasuke is, where all the girls have always liked him. No girl until now has really crushed on or lusted after Shikamaru in the narrative. Ino doesn't, Sakura doesn't, Tenten doesn't, etc, etc. Even Tamari, who it's almost immediately obvious he's going to end up with after they first interact, isn't exactly blushing at his every move like Hinata or something. Their relationship is far more playfully confrontive and argumentatively flirty. However, Shiho is blushing around him all the time. Shiho is attracted to his maturity and his responsibleness, and because he's got his shit together. And it's through Shiho's immediate and honest attraction to who Shikamaru has become that the audience is given a moment to reflect on his journey. You think, yeah, Shikamaru is totally a catch now. It's obvious why she'd be all over him. Plus, thematically, it's a reward for coming of age and growing up, being perceived this way by women. Fullmetal Alchemist, which shares a lot of these themes as well, about growing up and coming of age, as it is similarly about young adults maturing, stepping up, and taking responsibility, has many moments with the same sort of romantic attraction from Winry to Ed, as she slowly realizes she's in love with him as she matures throughout the series, and he becomes more lovable throughout his maturing throughout the series. This panel when she thinks to herself, when did his shoulders get so broad? After Ed reinvigorates his motivation to make his brother whole again and marches off to do so, epitomizes this to me. Guess what, guys? It's not really about his shoulders. It's a metaphor for being somebody that can be relied upon. This maturity equals...
I thought it was interesting. I had never thought about that before. Yeah, and I like how you do tie in here. Like, it feels, from what I know, I feel like that Fullmetal Alchemist scene is unique, and you're trying to find another example of that. And I like how you tie it in. Even though it feels a bit like a weird thing about this. Like, you do shoehorn it in. I think it's fine. I was like, oh, that's the moment they talked about. But I'm not sure, like, for Naruto fans, if it's a bit weird.
Dempsey trope maps pretty inarguably onto reality. If you get your shit together and seem responsible, mature, and capable, girls tend to like that. Like a lot. I would not, but it seems to be true. It's basically the thing that people say about focusing on yourself to be more successful romantically. Women tend to like that. Like a lot. I would not, but it seems to be true. It's
that's like, that people... I love that. It's really what I wouldn't know. I like that a lot.
Say about focusing on yourself to be more successful romantically. Only when you stop looking do the opportunities seem to mount in front of you. The point is clear though. Maturing.
I would know that, you know, not looking, but guys, I get so many letters. It's unbelievable.
Taking responsibility and getting your shit together drives the ladies wild, as is the case with Shikamaru and Shiho, and this highlights his character growth and thematically rewards him while also showing him as a guide for Naruto throughout the arc. And sure enough, come the end of the arc, when Naruto has achieved everything, defeated Pain and taught no jutsu to him like a real man, taken responsibility and matured, Ino of all people has a moment during the celebration where
I thought you were pointing at his crotch here. I got a bit confused. I think you could do that better.
Has a moment during the celebration where she says,
You know, I can almost fall for him. Huh?
The ladies love that shit. Coinciding with the theme we've been hitting on throughout the video. God, I'm just so smart. See how that was constructed? Women, believe it or not, can be attracted to more than just cute boys sometimes. They aren't as vain as those disgusting men who only put stock in looks. Responsibility and maturity drive the ladies wild, and that is what's portrayed in Shiho's attraction to Shikamaru here. It's emblematic of maturity, and it's a very small, neat, cute, and clever detail that enriches, however slightly, the characterization of Shikamaru and Naruto and the themes of growing up and maturing in the Pain arc. In a rather effective and endearing manner, mind you. And to me, in the end, it's important. Shout out our girl Shiho, we appreciate you.
Okay, so I would say that ending a little bit could maybe be skimmed down a little bit. It did feel you made your point again and again and again and again and again and again. But it's really not that bad. And I like this ending. It's very best guy ever-ish.
And to me, in the end, it's important. Shout out our girl Shiho. We appreciate you.
Salute.
Oh, and just to save the would-be Google search, because you probably forgot this too, the secret message in the code was, the real one is not among them.
Among us.
Naruto is so cool.
Love that line.
You probably Googled it a few minutes ago, huh?
I like this a lot. I like this a lot.
What a fucking 10 out of 10.
Used to say the vision again. Oh, it's good times. Yeah, Kyle's good. I reacted for you again. It may not be quite as genuine. I feel like I probably had maybe better moments last time, but hopefully you enjoyed it. I thought it was a good video. Points were interesting enough, but of course I'm always focusing on the actual style and flair of the video itself. I want to see you continue using interesting audio. Yeah, interesting audio effects. I'll probably get onto this later, but let's go to VinHard.
Sorry, I'm late for...
And you know, often I've been saying throughout this whole entire video, being unique in how you sound and your style really helps separate yourself from other people and finding your style. And VinHard turns up here and pretty much makes a great style straight away that's really economical with panels, so he's able to show a lot of stuff on screen. This is what I've, in my Hill video, I tried to do a little bit more of, is, not necessarily say what I'm showing, but, Kyle used this in your video with text as well. I'm just showing stuff on screen and using the visual elements to make your point to, when your voiceover will make a broader point, right? I'm not sure if it's in this try hard video, but like, for example, but you're making a broader point. What's an example of this? I can't think of an example in Trials video, but in my Hild video, basically, I make this point where I'm like, Vinland Saga tends to build up these arcs, and then through a few choices of their own, very specific choices in the arc, it all goes awry, it all goes wrong. And yeah, that's kind of the case, but I should probably, for that thesis statement, I should give some evidence for that. But instead of being like, yeah, such as Garmin killing Vargan or so on and so forth, I just show those panels on screen, and if you know it, you know it. If not, we move on. It's a small point that I'm making here, but it's going to help the flow of the video better, and I think this is what VinHard does very well. I also think that, very economical editing, doesn't do anything too flashy, and he's using pretty good music as well. Yeah, he's fun to listen to. Of course, I like his points, and I think they're interesting. But yes, I also think what VinHard does, and this is very interesting with this series because it's a bit unique. No one else in like our circle has done, maybe apart from Myre, but this is not quite the same, because VinHard knows what's happening next, and he has opinions on what's happening next, and he wants to see how the anime does it. But this allows him to play a little coy with, oh, I know this thing, come back next week and you'll find out, or come back in 2 weeks' time to the next video and you'll figure out what I'm talking about or what's interesting about it, so on and so forth. And then he's able to go on like a rant or make a bigger point in the end. But it kind of adds to what, and he does it in this video where he's being like coy and he's like hinting at future stuff he's doing, and he's able to do that consistently and like putting in little nuggets that you can miss. But unless you're like a VinHard super fan like me, where you watch the videos, at least I think I watched every video that he's made twice. So like, yeah, it's like interesting when you pick up on it again and you're like, it's emulating what VinHard likes in his media. It would seem, where he says he likes the, it's like, don't shove it in my face. I like the tzatziki sauce or whatever, and all this stuff. Have it too. And, it's like a nice aside. So give me the main course and then leave the other stuff for me to figure out. And that's how he writes his videos, which is cool.
For this one, illness, Easter holidays, lack of discipline. Anyway, time to actually bitch a little. Not a fan of this episode. Episode 13. I think it exemplifies.
I like how he kind of
all the
starts his
typical
videos
bad
with
words
like, like a little bit of a ramble. Like, I remember when you got your new microphone, you'd be like, okay, this week sounds better this time. Like, you don't say, oh, I got a new mic, I hope it sounds better. No, you're like, it's instant punchy. You're like, sounds better this time. And so, like, the same thing with this intro.
of this episode. Episode 13. Anyway, time to for this one. Illness, Easter holidays, lack of discipline. Anyway, time to actually bitch a little.
Yeah, it's like, and then you set up nicely. Time to actually complain. It's a nice way to go into stuff.
Not a fan of this episode. Episode 13. I think it exemplifies all the typical bad quirks of the adaptation. And let's begin with what it adapts, the first problem. It adapts the last 5 to 6 pages of chapter 73, chapter 74, and chapter 79, which is like just 50 pages, so it's also a slow episode. In the manga, this conversation with Fluffy and Dinah, and them and Snake finding Sverkel in the fields all happens directly after they finish cutting all the trees and Katie leaves the farm. And all that is right after the curse of the head. The next chapter is Garda's escape, then Arnheid getting assigned to take care of Sverkel and Snake being informed about Garda. After which we get the whole sequence with Canute and the Kettle family. And then after that, we cut back to the chapter where Thorfinn is listening to the Bible and Garda appears. The anime has like the worst sequence possible for this. First, Garda's setup, we go back in time to right after Kettle left, where Einar and Thorfinn's conversation is completely disconnected in the sequence from the stuff it's supposed to follow. Something happened to Svetil, scene right after deals with that. Snake learns about Garda, organizes guests, scene right after guests find Garda. Garda is set up and paid off in the same episode. No time for it to stew and get mixed up and weave between the Canute and Sverkel threads too. Episode is doomed to transition awkwardly between scenes and not make the most out of them. All the chilling in the farm scenes put together in the same episode feels blunt. Look, all these character interactions to get you invested in the relationship are stacked on top of each other instead of dispersed throughout the storyline. It makes it feel like Arnheid arrives on Sverkel's house and Garda attacks the next day, instead of the status quo having been a thing for a couple of weeks. Do not disagree with me and make excuses, please. I've had it with people always trying to excuse the way the anime orders things. When season 1 decides to make stuff
So I think this is a really good point, and I'll be thinking about it more in the future, in a way that you can make things feel more. It's just like very little changes to the macro positioning of stuff in your story, which then makes it feel deeper, then makes it feel more thought out, then makes it feel better and allows you to get more invested in characters over time, makes things feel more efficient. It's so like, until the anime did this, I didn't really realize how. And then like, I noticed that VinHard goes in more detail here, and I actually really, I totally agree. I mean, it makes sense why you don't complain about the season 2 opening later, because it does just spoil pretty much who Garda is. I think anybody who's paying attention is like, oh, that's Garda, but he does just appear in the first episode of the second core, and then gets resolved on who he is basically. And there's not time to really think about it or stew about it or make it feel like it's more complex than it is. You can almost feign complexity by how you structure stuff, which is fascinating on, not something, it's like such a economical way, as I said before. It's just such an efficient way to write, which I think, oh, my seat undid itself. Whoa, I hit the table, I hit the desk. But yeah, anyway, what's this?
Logical, while the manga has a very particular, intentional, and meaningful flow of information, such a good decision. But when season 2 contorts a very natural chronological sequence that also has a particular and intentional and meaningful flow of information, for God knows what reason, now you defend that? Actually, no, I'm wrong. I'll tell you why they did it too. They had a...
I like how he calls out, people just being positive for the anime. I think it's good to be generally, thankful for that we've got an anime. I like VinHard being, generally annoyed by this. I'm not that annoyed by it, but he does communicate stuff which I think is interesting and how I generally would prefer the manga. Interesting. I'm not caught up yet. These are the furthest seasons I've watched, episodes I've watched, but yeah, it's interesting. I think it's good. There's a good balance to be struck with how much we criticize something, but also how much we appreciate and be thankful that we've got something. I think it's very easy to be like, oh, like we need to love the anime, and Abaru and Yabuta are trying really hard to make it really good, and we can recognize that. But at the same time, there's a reason why we love the original story, and sometimes it feels off. And I'm going to complain about some stuff which you don't complain about in this video, which I think is interesting.
Single Canute chapter and 2 small farm chapters, and after that 4 chapters that very clearly align with...
I disagree with this though. I don't think this is necessarily the reason why.
That's way too little content, and they couldn't make 1 episode of all 3 despite that being reasonable, because the season has to stretch the content of 6 volumes to 24 episodes. Can't afford to go that very reasonable speed.
That's true.
And that also leads the episode to not have content that is interesting.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest downfall, maybe the Farmland, is just the fact it is trying to stretch a lot of stuff off. I haven't noticed it being an issue, but when you point out like theoretical problems on why that may be, because in the macro sense you have to order it differently to fit chapters in to hit logical flow. It's a massive puzzle and a massive ordeal, which is ultimately probably out of Yabuta's hands. It's the producer that says how many episodes you get in a season, and what you should and shouldn't adapt. It's not always necessary. I mean, it's interesting because Chainsaw Man was unique in that fact, where they did manage to choose it for the 24 episodes because they made like an offshoot branch of that company. There's no reason to think that Vinland Saga is unique in this fact, and they may be like, no, you make the whole second arc fit this 24 episode span line. We can't give you 20 episodes or whatever. I don't know why not. It could be like just Japanese bureaucracy. This is the way it's done. They have time slots to fill, so if you only do 20 episodes, they then have to find another anime that only has 4 episodes to fill that time slot or whatever. Like, there could be tons of reasons, which is almost why, like, eventually you hope anime could be something like Cyberpunk, where I think you just I don't think Cyberpunk aired at all. It's just like we're dropping it all on Netflix, and this is like and Cyberpunk. You watch it first of all, it's anime original, so it's going to be way more efficient and made for actual storytelling in animation form, not adapting a manga, so it doesn't have all the baggage that comes with that. That's not to say I very much enjoyed the second season of the anime, but hey, that's just how this is.
To analyze. It's the connective tissue. But before I get to that, the second major issue, which I called it before.
I also like how TryHard approaches stuff and how particular he is about certain things that I'm not particular about, but I find it interesting for him to hear it because it's a different perspective on Vinland Saga. I always appreciate that.
Season started. Lack of proper stylization, even if it would make it easier on them. Cowardice, I tell you. Bad aesthetic decision. For some reason, they're afraid of hard shadows, even though they clearly work in other parts. That's the Gardar special, and it's lost here. The Gardar intro does not even compare, even more than usual. Gardar just...
Yeah, no, if you know, I'm going to be, I know, like, I think this, I'm not something super attached to this in Gardar, but I think it makes him look so much, way cooler, way more menacing. This is why I love the manga. And I'm afraid when they introduce Hild, it's gonna look bad. Because they do a similar thing here. But the thing is, like, they do actually show this in a comedic fashion with Ulma early on. So I don't know why they don't do it here. There is an interesting difference in feeling when they do it like this, and I can kind of appreciate. Like, I don't actually hate it entirely. Like, I do prefer the manga, but
that doesn't hit the same here for obvious observable reasons that are on screen, and don't you dare try to spin this another way. It's not just this scene either. That's how Gardar is almost always presented. His eyes are shadowed and hostile, and I'll talk about why this adds to the story beyond the purely aesthetic decision in the episode 14 review. Also, I've got the subs pissing me off. I thought they were really bad this episode. And why does Gardar say her in the first scene beyond the purely aesthetic?
So I'm going to say here, I do kind of like. To me, the manga feels so much more dramatic because of these hard shadows. Like, I can like when I'm imagining music, there's like really like dramatic music playing, and it's like got a lot of orchestra and stuff like that. And that's not to say that Vinland Saga doesn't have dramatic music, but when he like appears over top, you know, of that meme panel I always use of Gardar looking down on all the on the guests, and they're like, "Oops," there's a mundanity that I like in the anime in a way. It's like not as like, it feels more down to earth, more realistic, and like less grandiose. And I actually didn't mind it that much. I was like, oh, this is an interesting way of adapting this scene. Like, to me, I didn't hate it. Yeah. Also, I don't think I talked about why I disagreed with the reasoning that it's only 12 episodes. You know, they did the changing of the order in a certain way. The reason why I think they did it is because they wanted to end the first core of episodes on episode 12, when it is that I feel like a nice spot to end it with, like, oh, we've got all the Canute stuff, and now we're going back to the farm. We've had a massive raise of stakes. You know, Canute's going to invade the farm. Okay, and then we have a new OP, new ED, you know, new. It feels like a new season, because it is the new season, even though it's, you know, the old. And I don't think it's necessary to do that, but I think that's part of the reason. And at least they leaned into it. Maybe what you said is actually the core reason, which is fair enough. But yeah.
Aesthetic decision in the episode 14 review. Also, I've got the subs pissing me off. I thought they were really bad this episode. Why does Gardar say her in the first scene?
Yeah, didn't like
this
that.
Is clearly one of the episodes paid less attention to. I understand why. They're saving up, but I still can't help feeling unfortunate. In terms of the story here, really only a couple of interesting things to talk about. The Bible bit and how it's approached. Thorfinn is not actually religious, and the story in general does approach the story in a secular fashion. If Thorfinn took this path because he's a Christian, and his explanation is basically, well, because God said so, it sucks the interesting out of the story, even if it would be the best historical explanation. But yes, love thy enemy is very in line with Thorfinn's mindset right now. Are you doing more than you need to or are expected to? That's what atonement should be. And in general, I do find that ideal admirable. People react badly to this one. What, am I supposed to just take it if I'm wronged? I think the supposed in the sentence here speaks a lot. People don't like a standard of goodness that they don't fit into, maybe. There's a lot to unpack here that's relevant to Vinland even. I feel like a huge part of this is a pride thing. They need to be perceived as winning, as being on top, or on the side of the winners. Feeling that that's admirable. It's a very primal thing, fed by insecurity and instinct, and it of course still persists. What on is very in line with the nation is basically.
I think sometimes, VinHard, you do talk so fast that I'm like losing. Like, I lost. Are you talking about within the context of, like, I didn't realize you weren't talking in the context of Vinland, and you're just talking about people in real life and how they react to that verse.
Well, because God said so. It sucks the interesting out of the story, even if it would be the best historical explanation.
Maybe it's because I'm watching two
love
times
thy
speed.
enemy is very in line with Thorfinn's mindset right now. Are you doing more than you need to or are expected to? That's what atonement should be. And in general,
For it's been said that you should an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. You know, which means revenge, you know, tit for tat. Like, if you do this, you deserve recompense. But here it says, no, but I say love your enemies. And pray for those who persecute you. Yeah, I don't think it's, like, in the UK, it's not like a controversial saying. It's a unique saying, people don't follow it, but yeah, it's interesting.
I do find that ideal admirable. People react badly to this one. What, am I supposed to just take it if I'm wrong?
I guess online, particularly with, like, Vinland Saga, when you talk about, oh, I have no enemies, particularly before the recent anime, and you have all these TikTok memes, It is kind of true where people are like, no, I do have enemies, and like that's not quite the point. It's like,
I think
yeah, like they missed the point of
the
what
supposed
enemies
in
are.
the sentence here speaks a lot. People don't like a standard of goodness that they don't fit into. Maybe there's a lot to unpack here that's relevant to Finland even.
I mean, yeah, people don't like feeling like they're morally bad. We'll probably talk more about this with Ari's video.
I feel like a huge part of this is a pride thing. They need to be perceived as winning, as being on top, or on the side of the winners, feeling that that's admirable. It's a very primal thing, fed by insecurity and instinct, and
Maybe.
it of course still persists. While more recently, self-sacrifice becomes a more accepted ideal, giving instead of taking, doing the right thing, even if you end up only losing because of it. Much more fitting and functional as a community value for actually living in a society, coexisting with others while having peace of mind. I like Snake's almost meta remark here. He doesn't like the prison. He wants to go back to the early fun parts.
I never thought of this as a meta remark. I think it's very interesting. That's how you kind of read it in a way. I thought it was just funny because Snake would totally like the Old Testament more than the New Testament. I thought that was just a funny character moment.
New opening and ending, I don't have a lot of thoughts on the latter, but the opening, I love the visuals, very pretty. But like the very first opening, I just don't feel the music fits. It's too anime for me. Still the second best OP. They have this.
Too anime for you. Interesting that you say it's too anime. I mean, this is the issue to some extent with the whole entire anime being done in Japanese. Uh-oh. I got a warning. Okay, so my OBS said that it overloaded the encoder, so I'm restarting. I'm just gonna have to piece them together and export it later. Let's see.
Imagery, the idol made of branches. I don't have.
Yeah, so what I was saying before, the issue with this all being said in Japanese, the fact that it is adapting a manga will make Vinland Saga feel more anime. It's got J-pop. I don't think the thing is though, it feels anime. But does it? Like, what's like Survivor the Prophet? Most of it is in English, actually. I think it's just, it feels like typical rock to me, which you could argue, oh, it doesn't really fit Finland. And I'd be like, dude, it'd be super cool if we could get actual Norse instruments in there as the OP. You know, like when season 2 started with the bagpipes, that's not Norse, but it's Scotland and it's kind of close enough. Like, it has that Arctic, you know, Celtic vibe to it, which I guess does fit with Askeladd's, you know, like Askeladd's background, and they're in England, you know, in Britain, sorry. Well, they're in England and Wales, and not Scotland, but they use bagpipes. You know, like, okay, that kind of works. But what does this do? It does get me hyped. I am jamming to this, you know, but most of it's English. I don't know why. I guess this is the issue with the anime in general. And it's worth it. I'm not sure if it's worse with the dub because they use American accents, but you're like, could I get an Icelandic dub of this? That would be fantastic. Honestly, that would make it even the best. You know, when I loved how they use Icelandic in the beginning. Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, it's gonna feel weird, right?
Too deep on it. It just seems like a Viking Jesus vibes, like a cross. It also has a lot of scenes of stuff that doesn't happen. It's just there to look good. Like Lizard's head was crushed, not cut off, actually. And the very last frame, very interesting choice of imagery. You know, sometimes I really feel like I am in the same wavelength with Yabuta, or whoever is inserting certain thematic connections in here.
This is exactly what I'm talking about with VinHard being like coy and like foreshadowing what he's going to be doing next. He's like, oh, I'm in the same wavelength. Look how smart I am. Oh, yeah. Which is always exciting for me because I'm like, maybe VinHard is, he's on the points. He's it's going to be interesting. Now, because I'm big brain, I know what he's talking about here, all right? It took me like 0.2 seconds. I'm like, bang, I know what it is, okay? I actually hadn't thought about it until he mentioned it. I was like, what does this skull and, you know, butterflies mean? But then he says, oh, this actually links to something. I'm like, okay. Ah, that's what it links to. Yeah, I just didn't pay much attention to it before. But yeah, if you don't know it, you don't know it. Okay. But it's, you know, just remember what completes a man, if you will.
This visual and the ideas around it are not from Farmland, but are very crucial for the next major analysis and planning, which is mostly going through Farmland. And here it is, in the opening of this second half of Farmland. Someone cooked here. Second episode is a bit better. Adapted chapters 80 and 81. Only 44 pages, but it also had some new stuff that kept it from feeling as slow as it could have. They did manage to adapt some of the excitement here. Okay, fine. Had some good animation points. The last hit, though, was delayed.
No, I didn't think the animation was that good. The coolest thing was like how they showed Snake turning his sword round so he wouldn't hurt him and then he could bonk him with the blunt side. But the manga just looks so much better, and like I think the camera angles look janky. Like he just didn't have the attack. When he's moving forward for the stabs, he goes like whoosh, it just didn't have the punch that I really wanted in it. I thought it was not well animated. I haven't seen the most recent episode, so I hope they don't mess up the animation, or they put all the animation chops. Like in episode 9, the animation was phenomenal there. I thought it went really well. I hope they put it in the Snake Thorfinn fight and have the chops, because I thought in episode 3, the whole backflip from Thorfinn, that looked jank in the slow motion. I don't like that. I also thought, but they also need to make sure it's really, really on point. The scene they need to get to is when Kettle and Arnie are together and he's beating her with the stick. I think that needs to be on point. It's one of my favorite scenes in the whole entire manga. I'll be very disappointed if it's not done very well. So, be first one to call that out.
Played a bit awkwardly.
But then again, with a production like this, you can't trust that they necessarily have the time, the budget, the manpower to do this, because Vinland Saga, they're being super efficient. I don't want to say economical again, but they're being super efficient with, hey, let's use a lot of still shots and make people look really good. Vinland Saga character designs are very complex, particularly their face. So it's not easy to animate all the time. And we want to put, they put lots of in the backgrounds and stuff, lots of like stock in that. So yeah, it does feel slightly like cheaper, but they're masking it well. Cheap is not the right word, because it does look really good. Like for an average anime, it's really, really good. So it's just like when you're coming off watching Chainsaw Man or Mob Psycho or Bocce the Rock or Ranking of Kings, like these things, like maybe because they are more cartoonish in their character designs or more obviously anime, then it feels like this one. I think my hot take is I think Vinland would work really well in live action. You can dull down the fight scenes, you can change those, because that's like, as long as they look still cool. Like, I mean, Thorkel doesn't have to be so anime strong, and if you wanted to, like, I think just the amount of, like, you could easily get away with making it live action and making it look good. It's not like Attack on Titan, where like this is just guys with swords. You got the Vikings episode, like the Vikings anime, not anime, the TV show. So yeah, I think it could work well.
Coward change of dialogue. Snake threatens he'll kill Gardar. I mean, Gardar will most likely die anyway. Snake in the manga threatens to kill Arnheid, or does...
See, I always like this because VinHard and the characters he really likes, I think, are characters I don't pay as much attention to, so he always draws out little bits of that. But yeah, once again, bad change of dialogue.
She's included in the threat. Snake has a conscience, but he will follow duty and the law above all else. He will keep that order. He personally doesn't discriminate between slaves and free men, but also that's how the world works. He will comply, and you better too. A slave's opinion doesn't matter. Arnheid's situation is fucked, because what's better for her and her unborn child is to submit to her life of slavery. People like Snake enforce that, like the guy in episode 1 said. The system...
Yeah, he's like... It's interesting that he's not a forceful change at all. Yeah. I think that's an interesting vein of different character.
Has made sure that escape is not an option that's worth taking. So she's forced to abandon her husband, whom she does love. Now, Gardar is not reliable here. He's delirious, injured, enraged, and there's obviously something off with him. Mentally and physically, he has some deep wounds. Lack of spatial awareness, confusion, fuzzy memory. He definitely can't think rationally. And this is how the stylization enhances his character. Paints him as a threat and conceals his face. Who has he become? Is he trustworthy, or just a mad runaway slave? His current state disturbs Arnheid a bit, and like Snake puts into words here, she uses that as an excuse. So guilt and duty doesn't make her do anything stupid. Of course, she doesn't deserve to feel guilty here. This was the right way for her to act, but it doesn't work like that. Her flashback here, in and of itself, is not really a part I love, but it does make her character really interesting. The backstory serves to point out how Norsemen are too eager to go to war. Other parts of the story, like the previous episodes, did that while showing the underlying mechanisms and reasons. Now they are assumed and constant, and the story expects you to apply that information and think critically. They also added some bits to it, particularly Gardar's justification, which at the same time doesn't much do well with your beginning line. I lost my son of a pot. But according to anime Gardar, it's not only pots, which also makes her take on it and Gardar a bit less earned. But it's supposed to be an excuse anyway. But Gardar is also supposed to be wrong. Spherical's flashback is new, and here's me and whoever made this again being on the same wavelength. Also a bit that's very relevant to my future analysis, getting explicit attention. Weathering the storm or not weathering the storm. Neither is going to prevent tragedies on its own. Personally, I view Arnheid's story to be about the person weathering the storm. I'll elaborate on my eventual analysis.
I did think it was very interesting because this thematically does change quite a bit of Arnie's character, this backstory that he's added in. I also think it's very interesting. Like, I thought it was a very efficient backstory. Definitely the best backstory they've done, where the same event, then you can see, I'm not sure if we're going to talk about this later, you can see how that affects both Spherical and Kettle differently. And I wonder if they'll bring this up more, but you can see the seeds of this. Is like, oh, the Kettle we know and the Spherical we know, this makes exactly the same sense, like with the whole wealth being brought up again, but Kettle sees that man that robbed him of his love, and he wants to be that man because that's the only thing he can think of how he can get stronger. He needs to get wealthy. But then, like, Spherical also sees how that man died, which was also because he was wealthy. And then, you can see why Kettle is now you know, self-conscious, lacking in confidence. What is it? You said it earlier. Anyway,
Myre may view this
like, that's why Castle is how he is.
to contrast her current decision, which is fine. Or it is just a comment on Arnheid's perspective of waiting out the storm. I still think they're on point with the general thing. Also, the wealth thing doesn't come up that much, so this is an acceptable, beneficial reminder. Only nitpick I have is that it's weirdly placed right after another backstory. Thorfinn and Dinah are also
no. I think it works well together. But yeah.
streams, with Thorfinn under the oath and Dinah wanting to fight for Arnheid, even if he acknowledges that he probably won't be able to achieve anything. And in this situation, I think Thorfinn and Arnheid are clearly right. Acting now is most likely going to create more tragedies. And that's all for now. I have high expectations for the next 2 episodes. I feel like they're likely to get the good treatment, and they need it.
Good stuff. All right, so I've just got Ari left. I may have to go a little bit quick on this.
Let's suppose someone...
But yeah, because I'm going to probably run out of time. I've got 16 minutes left before I need to
comes
say
up to
hi
me and asks, "Hey there, Ari, who's your favorite Attack on Titan character?" And without hesitation, I proudly declare, why, Mikasa, of course. Her story is nothing short of heartbreaking. She's experienced the unimaginable pain of losing her family not once, but twice. Yet through it all, she manages to keep pushing forward and stay strong. And that's why she's my favorite. But wait, there's more. Remember that cute scene in the Battle of Trust where she breaks down in tears upon hearing Eren's heartbeat? Adorable. And let's not forget how fiercely protective she is of Eren. It's just too cute for words. And did I mention how awesome she is in a fight? Watching her take down Titans is always a thrill. So in summary, my love for Mikasa stems from her ability to overcome unimaginable trauma, her sweet and sentimental moments, her cute dedication to protecting Eren, and her badass fighting skills. And yet, none of this is true at all.
So I think first things first. So I'm not sure if something that I noticed, and I don't think it's necessarily bad with Ari. Like, it feels like you're trying your narration voice, and this could be the same with me as well. Feel free to comment on my narration voice and if I'm being hypocritical giving this opinion, but it does feel like you are you're like almost trying a little bit too hard. It's a little bit too croaky, and at some points you can be like undercut where you're trying to like say like
Favorite Attack on Titan character. And with that, let's suppose someone comes up to me and asks, "Hey there, Ari, who's your favorite Attack on Titan character?"
like you've like a character, like it lost all the punch, the strength behind your voice over there. But I do
Without
like,
hesitation.
in the same way that Sichlitt in his video you know, is a bit ironic at the start. Like, this feels intentionally cringy at the start in a way, even though it is kind of true. It is kind of like, oh, look how strong she is, look how hot she is, look how cute she is, look how whatever. And it's like, yeah.
Declare, why, Mikasa, of course. Her story is nothing short of heartbreaking. She's experienced the unimaginable pain of
So
losing her
deep,
family
man,
not
so
once, but
deep.
twice. Yet through it all, she manages to keep pushing forward and stay strong. And that's why she...
Like, though it does kind of catch me on to this idea that you're watching. I can't remember my first experience watching this though.
She's my favorite. But wait, there's more. Remember that cute scene in the Battle of Trust where she breaks down in tears upon hearing Eren's heartbeat? Adorable. And let's not forget how fiercely protective she is of Eren. It's just too cute for words. And did I mention how awesome she is in a fight? Watching her take down Titans is always a thrill. So in summary, my love for Mikasa stems from her ability to overcome unimaginable trauma, her sweet and sentimental moments, her cute dedication to protecting Eren, and her badass fighting skills. And yet, none of this is true at all. I like Mikasa because she is Mikasa. In other words, there is a Mikasa in my mind that is deserving of adoration, but simply spouting facets of her character to justify my love of her is just probing at this more holistic representation that can never be conveyed. For the author is dead, along with objectivity, and so my understanding of Mikasa
I love that. Like when you yeah, the car reference.
is unique to me. There is no way for me to convey it, for it is the amalgamation of the entirety of my experience of her, conditioned on my life experience. I can't explain why I like Mikasa, because no one else experienced her character the same way that I did. I can only touch on reasons that scratch the surface of her character as it exists in my mind. But what I find more interesting is that
So I don't actually really agree with this. Not because I like in principle disagree. Like, of course, like I can't communicate exactly why, like, my feelings on Mikasa, why I like it or like her character, whatever. Let me give you an example, like why I like Reiner as a character. Like I can't give you all the reasons and just telepathically communicate to you, because language, the way that we communicate meaning, is an abstraction of that meaning inherently, right? But also I find like when I talk about stuff and I put stuff into words, that crystallizes it in form and a way of communicating it. It helps me take whatever mumbo jumbo airwaves I've got going up here and somehow puts it into words and actually helps me understand better. It's me processing verbally whatever I'm feeling. And I don't think, like, when I'm explaining why I like a character, if someone listens to that, they're like scratching the surface. Like, in some ways, they'll never be able to feel like the raw emotion of what I feel towards the character in a certain moment, right? That's impossible to like convey. Like, they just have to experience it themselves, or, you know, and all this stuff, right? But when you give a reason to why you like a character more in retrospect, I think those kind of things can be communicated really well. I think you can get like 90% of the way there. It's not like, oh, I've only given you 5% of the real reason why I like a character. It's like, no, so I have initial enjoyment of them, right? But then like, oh, I think that moment with them is really cool or whatever. But then I think about it more and more and more, and okay, this is interesting, and then I crystallize, and I actually really like them more. Because eventually, what I find with like, say someone, let me take someone like Sergeant Major Armstrong from Fullmetal Alchemist. That as a character archetype is one I really like and I really enjoy it. I'm just like, Pog, he's a big muscle man with a big heart. My favorite archetype. I love that stuff. But I will never really say I really like love him more than any, like other characters in Fullmetal Alchemist. Why? Because despite me having like that strong initial connection way more with him, it's because I've not really found more reasons past that to like him, to give me a longer emotional connection to why I like that character. Maybe I should have a deeper dive on his character, but it's like for me, the deep diving is what makes me like that character more, you know, like, and that's a way to crystallize how I like this character in a way, like it gives me more reasons to like them. I'm not sure if that rant helps you at all. I also think
that none of this is true either. I don't know why I like Mikasa. I like her because I like her. Any reasons I provide are not an explanation for how I formed the representation of Mikasa in my mind, but a sort of confabulation, a post hoc rationalization to justify this inherent unexplained feeling of loving the character of Mikasa. Don't get me wrong, I truly believe it deep down in my heart when I say that I like Mikasa because it was incredibly adorable when she cried on hearing Eren's heartbeat. I truly do believe this, but in this self-reflective rant, I am suggesting this to be a self-delusion, a reason that is completely are not an explanation for how I formed the representation of Mikasa in my mind, but a sort of confabulation, a post hoc rationalization to justify this inherent unexplained feeling of loving the character of Mikasa. Don't get me wrong, I truly believe it deep down in my heart when
so I understand what you're talking about here, where you're like, boom, like I have this initial impression is really cool. Like, for example, like, I had this with Hild. Like, I just thought her like jacket when she's looming over them as their ship is going into it, I thought like that was really cool. Like, it's just like a cool jacket, and then it's revealed later that she's like, she's got this, you know, relationship to Thorfinn. I was like, holy crap, this is a big deal. She looks scary, and then Yukimura uses all the classic like dark shadows on it, which like makes me like him more. I'm like sweating because I'm like, my boy Thorfinn, he's on the ropes here, kind of deal. Like, for whatever reason, that moment just hit really well with me, right? But the fact that then I go and investigate Hild and she has more to her character then cements her as a reason why I continue to like her character, and I still really, really enjoy her character, and it's continued on as the story has progressed, because now I've then made that basis of why I like Hild as a character. I'm able to build that upon, right? Same thing with Thorfinn. Though I think Thorfinn maybe had the opposite, where I have like initial spark with him, and I'm like, oh, this is really, really cool, I really enjoy this. But later on, as we get further and further into the story, I'm less like, well, no, I'm more interested in now, but like, anyway, it goes more up and down, basically, like with Thorfinn, because I don't necessarily think, no, that's not necessarily true, no. I'm trying to think, anyway. No, like, it's something, like, with Thorfinn, basically, it's like, the depth to his character, which, it basically is now spiking again in the Vinland arc, that's what I'm saying, like, I'm not making it super obvious and clear what I'm trying to say, but basically, like, you can have like initial spark of why you like a character and like why you like vibe with the character, but you know, there's loads of characters that can, like, at least for me, that can give me that vibe, you know, and then I can go on later. Like, I was thinking of making this a video of like tropes I like, and talking about that in this way. Yeah. So what I'm saying is, like, your post hoc rationalization is only adding on to your probably enjoyment of a character. At least that's what it does to me, right? It's not like, anyway, but you're not wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong.
when I say that I like Mikasa because it was incredibly adorable when she cried on hearing Eren's heartbeat. I truly do believe this, but in this self-reflective rant, I am suggesting this to be a self-delusion, a reason that is completely and fundamentally based in nothing. I'm retroactively trying to justify my feelings after they have occurred. Of course, you can consciously choose to love or hate.
I don't think that's necessarily true though, because you can watch something and be like, because ultimately this is what I'm thinking is going in your mind, right? You're being like, I'm watching Mikasa and oh, she's kind of hot, right? And that's just it. Like, that's just your thought. Like, you're not post hoc rationalization. In the moment, you're like, man, she's kind of cute. Like, I find that adorable. And then you think back, it's like, okay, what moments did I find adorable? Well, is this moment that I found cute, right? Or this is like a moment where I found her hot and badass, whatever. Like, I don't think it's like necessarily like, now, if you're then trying to be like, oh, I don't want to be like, oh, she's cool because she's hot, and you're not going to be like Kyle, where he's like, oh, you know, Piek is the most Piek to ever Piek, whatever. Right? Like, it feels a bit post hoc, and it's like you're trying to build up a wall. It's like, oh, I like this character, but it's for deep reasons, bro. It's not like, I'm not a simp, man. Like it makes you feel self-conscious, or Oh, it's the same word I was missing before, like lacking in self-confidence. Anyway, I can't think of the word, but that's what it kind of feels like. And if you own it, be like, yeah, she's cute, yeah, she's hot, but also she's super cool. And then she's also got all this other stuff like the headaches and so on. Like, I think that's cool. So
hate characters. Perhaps you firmly decided to hate Eren after he committed the rumbling, or felt a visceral hatred of Femto after what he did to Casca. But for the case of Mikasa, my adoration.
a side note, I literally have never, I don't think for like a moral action, I've really felt that strongly to hate a character. If anything, that just makes me like them even more, because I'm like, wow, you evinced that emotion from me. You evoked that. Holy moly, like, pff, ooh, okay, I don't like that. Oh, that's fascinating. Like, it's like, I can, yeah, I don't find myself hating characters.
Was certainly not conscious, and speaking from anecdote, this seems to be the case for many characters that I love. If we probe the field of psychology, this post-hoc, my adoration was certainly not conscious, and speaking from anecdote, this seems.
I can see that Anne is very like there's a lot of very adorable moments with her, like where she's like, I think also more so in the anime because they do kawaii her up a bit, but when she's like trying to throw the ring away and then it lands on her finger again, there's like it is like, oh, that's quite sweet. And I'm going to introduce the Jarky Bacon theory. It's not, I'm sure someone else has thought of this, but there's probably like certain categories of like primary feeling, primordial feelings, primal feelings, that's a better way of putting it, of like why you may like or dislike a certain character. Let's go with liking. Like, let's just take four. First of all, you can find them cool, you can find them hot, you can find them cute, and you can find them funny. Like, and these things can all overlap, right? But if you just want to segment them arbitrarily for the moment, right, and you can add a more extensive list down the line, but you can be like, it's like, where do you generally find, like, if a character resonates with this, like, how often do you find a certain character of a certain, primal attribute feeling? How often do you find you really liking them, and how easily is it for? Like, for me, if a character is something I think is cool, boom, like, that is so, like, as a primal feeling, I'd like say, I'm probably like, so when I say cute here or adorable, I mean in like in a child, like when you see a baby or when you see Anne, like, or like oh that's sweet, like like a baby doing something like adorable or cute, like, but like I'll be like cool, funny, hot, then cute, probably. Like, if I was going to rank like in terms of things that like I generally like my widest nets for what's going to, like, the most efficient primal method for me to enjoy characters is probably those three. If I find you funny, I'm going to like you more than generally if I find you hot, and then I'm going to find characters that I find hot generally more likable than I find people who I find adorable, so on. Like, and cool is the highest one. Like, anyway, I'm not sure if this is like people have thought about this before. Probably have. I don't think it's that unique. All right.
To be the case for many characters that I love. If we probe the field of psychology, this post-hoc rationalization may stem from cognitive dissonance, where a person experiences discomfort on having contradictory attitudes, beliefs, or behaviors. Consider a person who smokes cigarettes even though they know it's harmful to their health. A person who is against animal cruelty but still eats meat. A person who strongly believes that they chose to love a fictional character but did not consciously choose to love them at all. To resolve this discomfort, we attempt to alter our beliefs or behaviors to achieve consistency. We may decide we're especially immune to the harm of cigarettes. We may justify meat consumption by claiming it's a natural requirement for living. And we might engage in post-hoc rationalization to justify our love for characters to reconcile the dissonance between unconscious love and a belief that we arrived at that love consciously. In other words, I'm pulling out justifications for my love of Mikasa as a sort of unconscious debate tactic to try and convince myself that my love for Mikasa is in fact justified, using reasons that seem reasonable and defenses that seem defensible to resolve my cognitive dissonance. To end, I want to make a symbolic parallel.
So I think I actually understand what you're saying, because sometimes you're like, for example, if someone would be like, oh, why do you think Billboard's like a good character, or you like him so much? I'd be like, I can explain it to you, but I can't explain it to you within the confines of Vinland Saga on why I like him. It's personal reasons why I like Willibald. I can't explain to you why, but I've had to think about that. It's like, why do I connect with Willibald? Why do I find him relatable? And that's, I guess, this post hoc rationalization. But I think it's not cognitive dissonance, though. It's like me just trying to figure it out. I guess maybe it is, but it's not like in a negative sense, because you kind of say, oh, people, for example, they'll be against animal cruelty. Like, they will be like, oh, you shouldn't kick puppies, but I will gas pigs in a gas chamber to get their flesh, right? And have them live imaginably cruel lives in these places because I don't see it, right? And then I'll like create a reason for this because, I need the protein, man. I need the animal protein or whatever, or the vitamin B12, or whatever, right? So you can talk about these certain things, and there is a cognitive dissonance there. But I don't think it's like, I don't think it's self-deluding. I think it's just in a way, if you're aware that like, hey, I like this character because of this primal like feeling I have. Like I want to investigate that. I want to investigate why I feel that way, not necessarily cover up the actual reason why it makes me feel uncomfortable. If that makes sense, there's a difference there, which I think is what I find interesting. And maybe like my conflict with this video in a way is because I use media to get that primal reasoning, that primal feeling I have, and then post hoc rationalize, oh, why did I no, not even post hoc rationalize. I'm just trying to figure out why I felt that way. And, you know, sometimes I figure out a reason, sometimes I don't, but that's what's interesting because, you know, I'm a self-obsessed individual. So yeah, I think that's something that I really like about media because it's a way of, in a way, therapy or understanding myself better. Because, you know, you're showing me stuff and you're getting me to feel ways. I'm like, why do I feel this way? Why am I super bored when it's internal monologues? You know, why am I not super engaged in this instant? It's like trying to think about it and manage yourself. And that's partly what makes it interesting, you know? Why do we care about, you know, the world building in this series, but in another series where it's like, I guess objectively just as, you know, detailed or whatever, why do I not care about this world building as much? And like balancing between them. Sometimes there's a really simple reason, like, oh, I just find the character hot, or I find the character really cool, or I find the character really cute or really funny. It doesn't have to be that big brained. And sometimes we do want it to be big brained because we want to be seen as smart. I think that's what you're getting at here. You want to feel smart for liking Mikasa. There's a real deep reason there, bro. It's deep, bro. But sometimes it's not that deep, bro. But sometimes it kind of is. Like, you can find deep reasons. And you made your Mikasa headache video, which I think is really interesting.
Parallel to an interesting neurological condition called Anton Babinski syndrome. A person is blind but denies or is unaware of their blindness. For instance, a blind woman who, when asked about her surroundings, will confidently make...
I think just as an interesting example of this is if you go see CGP Gray's video on UR2, go watch that one. That's an
Incorrect
interesting
statements about the presence and placement of objects around her. More generally, ask a patient with Anton Babinski syndrome to make a decision based on
That's
visual
Toph.
stimulus that in reality they
I mean,
can't see,
Toph.
and they will provide justification for why they
Toph is the Smash player.
made their decision based on a sense of vision that they do not possess. So too do we provide reasons for liking characters, though no reasons exist internally. So perhaps the next time you hear me say I like a character, know that I'm just trying to convince both you and myself that I have a good reason for liking them, when in reality I truly have no idea why I like them at all.
Sorry, I'm late for this.
Okay, so yeah, there you go, Ari. Actually, no, it's not there you go, Ari. We've got more to
Let's suppose
watch
someone comes
here.
up to me.
I do like self-reflective. I think I made my points better than I did in my last video, so I guess it works in the end. Mikasa.
Throughout Attack on Titan, Mikasa has a bunch of headaches, and a lot of people seem to be confused as to why they happen. From my perspective, they certainly aren't the byproduct of her Ackerman genes, and there's no convincing evidence that they're a symptom of Mikasa resisting a memory wipe. And contrary to popular belief, they're not even triggered by Ymir watching the world through Mikasa's eyes. The reason for their existence is very clear, so let's get straight to it. And
Okay, I think because I'm going to have to export anyway, I'm going to come back to this and see in a bit and discuss this in a bit because I want to spend time on this one. All right, so I'm back a bit later. Whoa, my microphone just fell down there. Okay, I'm going to be continuing on straight up. All right, I'm going to be talking about this video because you said you were really proud of it. On Twitter, I saw something I'd be really happy with. And so I think it'd be nice if I could go over it and give it another shot. I watched it again after doing it. I was impressed. And so I want to be impressed again. A few things I want to talk about here that I think you could focus on maybe in the future and other people could focus on as well.
throughout Attack on Titan, Mikasa has a bunch of headaches, and a lot of people seem to be confused as to why they happen. From my perspective, they certainly aren't the byproduct of her Ackerman genes, and there's no convincing evidence that they're a symptom of Mikasa resisting a memory wipe. And contrary to popular belief, they're not even triggered by Ymir watching the world through Mikasa's eyes. The reason for their existence is very clear, so let's get straight to it. And for that, we have to go back to when the two men attempted to kidnap Mikasa's mother.
First of all, really cool that you're doing animated panels.
So let's get straight to it. And for that, we have to go back to when the two men attempted to kidnap Mikasa's mother.
It's also like subtle, like moving like the blood here is like very simple things to do to just give it a little bit of energy in the scene, which is very nice. I also love this font.
In the process of kidnapping Mikasa's mother, the
All right, I probably need to. I also think your voiceover is better here.
two kidnappers wind up killing both her parents. Scared little Mikasa, seeing the sudden deaths of her parents, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of weight and girth and like depth to it. I like it. I like it a lot. Also, just like simple things like you go to this,
In the process of kidnapping Mikasa's mother, the two kidnappers wind up killing both her parents. Scared little Mikasa.
go out, you know, and then Mikasa comes in, and then you come around the side. It's nice.
In front
It's
of her eyes,
nice.
stands frozen in shock.
Very
One of the
nice.
kidnappers, a bit panicked from their plan to kidnap Mikasa's mother having gone wrong, decide to kidnap Mikasa instead. One of them picks her up by the shirt and gives her a solid punch to the head, knocking her out. They carry her away to
See, This is also another thing. I'm not sure if people notice that. If other people watching,
Mikasa's mother,
what works
however,
about this
slightly
thing?
kidnap Mikasa instead. One of them picks her up by the shirt and gives her a solid punch to the head, knocking her out. They carry her away to a cabin
Did you get it? Sound effects.
and gives her a solid
Awesome.
punch to the head.
I think one thing that you could do
Mikasa instead.
when you're moving stuff in, you could make the keyframe ease it in, which
One
may
of them
make it
picks
like
her up by
nicer.
the shirt and gives her a
See, like you could just, and there must be an option for this in whatever programming you're using. But when you take the keyframes, try and make it like ease in, so that it's not going straight. So it's not like on the screen. It's not like it's more like accelerates and decelerates.
solid punch to the head.
Love that.
knocking
Really
her
smart.
out. They carry her away to a cabin and she wakes up with a pounding headache. She's lost her entire family and is laying on the cabin
Headphones.
floor, cold, alone,
Headaches. I
and
like the sound
completely
effects
empty.
again. Love
She's
it a
so
lot.
emotionally lost that she hasn't even shed a single tear throughout this entire series of events. This terrible feeling of pure emptiness and pain at the loss of her family buries itself deep into her mind.
I actually think probably one thing you could do to make your videos look more professional is easing the keyframes. I'm not sure if you've learned this since this video, but yeah, use the keyframes.
Intertwined with the memory of this pounding headache. And so, being knocked to the ground by the kidnapper was where her headaches first began, and future experiences that forced the recollection of this trauma are what trigger the psychosomatic headaches that echo
I like how you are reusing the panels again and again, which is really nice.
throughout the rest of her life. So what experiences exactly trigger the recollection of this trauma? Is it the fear of pain or the feeling of being cold? It's actually neither of these. The recollection of her trauma is triggered by Mikasa thinking she is losing people she cares about, losing her family for a second time. She gets a headache after the death of Carla, after thinking that Eren's died in the Battle of Trust, after seeing the female titan eat Eren in the forest of the giant trees, after learning that Eren was taken by Reiner and Bird.
I love how the headache sound joins well with the music to build a sense of like tension, and like as you are listing stuff off, it makes things for like it gives a little bit of anxiety, which that kind of the heartbeat sound does as well.
After their fight at All Rose. After seeing Armin lying on the roof
Though I will say, I think next time what you could do, if you could somehow learn how to pan the sound round, because at the moment I'm just getting blasted through my left ear at the moment, which is nice. But like if you can, which is nice initially, but when it's done again and again like this, it'd be nice to have it, move round your headphones when you're listening.
burnt to a crisp by the colossal titan. And finally in the midst of the battle of heaven and earth, once when she believes Armin's explosion killed Eren, and again toward the end of the battle, where it seems she is going to lose every friend that is still alive, and will be forced to kill Eren to prevent that from happening, being forced to lose her family for a second time. Now there's two other instances, and they're the two headaches that are caused by Mikasa's interactions with Louise, the little girl she saves back in the Battle for Trust. Right after saving her and exchanging a military salute, Mikasa gets a headache. The reason caused by Mikasa's interactions
Another
with
really
Louise,
nice little
the
thing
girl
here.
she saves back in the Battle for Trust. Right after saving her and exchanging a military salute,
It's
Mikasa
really
gets
nice, like just small, just adds a little bit of crunch, a little bit of flavor and depth to the editing, and like people won't notice that, but when they listen to it back, it will just sound good.
a headache. The reason for this is pretty straightforward.
Also, good animation. See, you're using the easing there. Maybe
Military
there's a reason
salute,
why you're using
Mikasa
this.
gets a headache. The reason for this is
I think the animation of the sound effects, that's really cool. I didn't notice that the first time. That's really cool.
on seeing Louise and her mother happily alive and together in a situation that could have easily resulted in their deaths, Mikasa is reminded of her own personal trauma. And many years later, when Louise is imprisoned for leaking information about Eren's arrest, she salutes Mikasa once more, reminding her of the first time she saved her, and hence, once again, the kidnapping incident. This time showing us through a creepier, more distant framing of Eren, that Mikasa is afraid that she may be losing the Eren she thought she knew, the warm young boy who saved her from her trauma, and gave her a new family all those years ago. So Mikasa gets headaches due to recalling her trauma, and what tends to cause the recollection of this trauma are emotionally stressful situations where she feels she is about to lose people she cares about. Sure, you can go ahead and inject theories about resisting memory wipes, and that maybe Ymir is looking inside her head only at these very specific moments, but that's all just extra stuff that you can choose to believe if you want, but it doesn't negate the core of these headaches, that they all stem from Mikasa's recollection of her trauma. So there we go, we've addressed the title of the video with a straightforward answer as to why Mikasa gets her headaches. But Mikasa is a character within a story, so yes, she gets psychosomatic.
Yeah, this is interesting because you kind of come on this with my video later, which we'll talk about, is that like, you've talked about like the really bare bones, the nuts and bolts, the plot bro reasoning. Oh, this is why it is. But like the thematic reasoning on top of it that goes into additional stuff that makes sense.
Headaches, but these
Right.
headaches should serve a narrative purpose, and the way I
Yeah.
see it, they most certainly do. So now let's flash forward to the Battle of Heaven and Earth. Levi's words echo in Mikasa's mind. We're the only ones left who can kill Eren. The headaches begin beating her down, reminding her of the trauma of losing her family, chaining her back from
Also, I didn't comment on this one scene, which I did really like initially, but here.
are emotionally stressful situations where she feels she is about
This
to
is
lose people she
awesome.
cares about.
The amount of like just zooming out in the
Sure,
panels
go
and then
ahead
take out the
theories
middle
about resisting
part,
memory wipes,
which is
but
really,
maybe
really
Ymir is
cool.
looking
I
inside
like
her
that a
head only
lot.
at these very specific moments.
And it like kind of adds a nice cool border around your content there.
But that's all just extra stuff that you can choose to. The headache is a go by giving her a new family. These headaches remind her that without Eren's help in moving on from her tragedy, she is just a cold, empty girl lying on a cold cabin floor, alone and destined to remain that way forever. So now she is forced to make the ultimate choice.
It's interesting because often in my videos I always avoid. I'm not sure if people notice this, but I really try and avoid using the same panels again and again. Now that's often because I'm not talking about a hyper-specific situation, but I want to avoid using a panel more than once. it's not necessarily something I notice in other people's videos, but it's just when I'm editing, I'm like, nah, I don't want to do that. I'm not sure if people notice that in my work. It hasn't bothered me here at all. I actually think it's smart, and it's not like causing fatigue, being like, oh, I'm getting bored now because I'm seeing the same stuff again and again.
Whether to listen to her headaches, cling to Erin, and bury herself in fear of her trauma, or to face the headaches, end Erin's life, and use her own strength to take the first solid step beyond her fears, all on her own. And I guess we all know the choice she ends up making. She struggles her way through the headaches, and acts symbolic of pushing through the trauma of losing her family, using her own strength to move on from past tragedy, and choosing to end Erin's bloodshed for the sake of humanity. So now let's talk about our founder Ymir. King Fritz killed her parents, burnt her village, cut out her tongue, and caused unfathomable trauma that tormented her entire immortal existence. And through the alternate history panel in the final chapter of Attack on Titan, we see the life that Ymir wished she could have lived. A life where she was able to move on from her love for the wicked King Fritz. Through her saddened eyes as she conjures an image of this wishful past, we learn that she is someone who regretted the steps she took through life. But up until this moment, she knew of no other path through life, as love, no matter how nightmarish, no matter how one-sided, was the only vehicle for happiness she'd ever been exposed to throughout her entire traumatic life. This
I do like this moment a lot.
She buried herself in her trauma, leading to a life she would come to regret. Without it, she was just a sad, empty slave, living a lonely, tormented life. But this young girl with all-seeing sight watched Mikasa as she lived her life, and saw a woman with whom she could truly empathize, conjure the strength to move on where she never could. Through seeing Mikasa's choice to use her own strength to push through her trauma, Ymir sees it's possible for her to move on from her own trauma too, finally appearing as a woman and making the power of the Titans, the symbolic embodiment of her trauma, disappear from the world. And so, why does Mikasa have headaches? So that Attack on Titan can tell the story of a traumatized, empty girl using her own strength to move forward from tragedy.
I think what feels wrong about this in a way, I like what you've pulled out here. I like it. Just doesn't feel like a consistently brought up thing throughout the story. But the thing is, that was the thing initially, but now you've tied it into the headache, so it does feel more consistent. I'm not fully bought into it. I'm not like a hater of 139 or lover 139. I was very much like burnt out on it by the time. You know, I was more like, oh man, I got to get this video done rather than actually worry about whatever I care about the chapter or not. But yeah, no, I quite like it. I'm kind of tying it back in, but this kind of brings up later.
Mikasa can do it, and Ymir can do it, then so can you.
It almost seems like you make this like the point of Attack on Titan, but I feel like there's way more reoccurring themes that are way more prevalent and way more thought-provoking. I know that's probably not the point, but it's an interesting like tie-in. And I ultimately think it falls a little flat, like oh, you can too, because of the story it tells you. I'm not sure if I'm convinced by that, but it's an interesting. I do like that bringing it together. It's very good. Great video.
So why does Mikasa have headaches? So that Attack on Titan can tell the story of a traumatized, empty girl using her own strength to move forward from tragedy. If Mikasa can do it,
I guess with your phrasing there, it doesn't necessarily have to be like you're saying it's central, but it does feel like you're saying it's central. Like, so Attack on Titan can tell the story of this, but it's more like, how would I phrase it differently? I don't even know. So Attack on Titan can tell many stories, one of the stories being the girl in this, whatever.
And Ymir can do it, then so can you.
Very small thing. Cool. And then next up is this. I'm going to react to you reacting to my reaction. How about this for some Inception, hey?
Okay, so 2023 ranking so far. Number 1.
Because I watched it and I want to say I'm really thankful that you do this stuff. Like, you point out some stuff that I think is really interesting about whatever. I did, right? And it's a completely different perspective. And it's always really, really cathartic to hear someone else talk about your work in a way that's kind of detailed and venerates you a bit. Yeah, so I quite like it.
So that's it. Now, for YouTube videos, Healed Must Die by Jarky Bacon, so 29 minutes long. Healed is a character, I guess Vinland Saga spoilers. Healed is a character in Vinland Saga and everyone loves her, and Bacon is convinced that she has to die basically. Let me go through my notes here. Fantastic title and thumbnail. I really like both of these, and I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up getting a lot of views. Like, I feel like this is a really good pair of title and thumbnail. Where I think the only limiting factor here is how many people are currently up to date with Vinland Saga's manga. But if you are, I can't imagine a manga reader being up to date and then seeing this and choosing not to watch it. You know, so I don't know. I think it's a really good choice of stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm not convinced by the thumbnail. I feel like the thumbnail could be more provocative, just because it's like. Ultimately, it's not obviously healed, I guess. It's a bit too detailed of a face on a thumbnail. And I think it's also, it's like, as soon as you look at it, you're not like, oh, that's healed, because it's not got a iconic design. It hasn't got the headband and all this stuff. It would be nice if maybe she's a bit like more kawaii or whatever, even though those are my least favorite healed panels. Because I like it when healed's cool. I don't like it when she's like waifu-ized, I guess, or whatever. Like, I don't know. There's probably some better ones, but it's just like how her looking straight at the camera, there's not many of those, and I thought, you know, this makes sense because it's like the farmland. It kind of tells you in the thumbnail there's going to be Vinland arc spoilers and stuff like that, but yeah. Anyway, I'm glad that I appreciate you very much, you giving your quick thoughts and affirming my thumbnail when I sent it to you because I was unsure about it.
It's also a really interesting video in that he spends the first 12 minutes highly edited and very high production and all that to convey his idea like concisely and all that, and then he then he goes into a big, very long face cam ramble kind of thing. I think it's a really cool idea because it gets you to convey the core theme, or core thesis that you want, but then to also expand on it optionally for the people who are interested, and there always will be people who are more interested to hear more of your thoughts. So I don't know. I think it's a really interesting idea. Maybe I'll try something like this one day. But yeah, he does a really good job of it as well.
Well, if you do it, I think it's an interesting thought that how you thought that was like more intentional on my part. I guess like it kind of just happened because there's stuff I wanted to say and I said it, and it seems like most people enjoy the ramble. One thing which maybe you could give more feedback on is like, was the ramble interesting to listen to in the sense that was I entertaining? I had a few jokes in there. I don't know if people found it like, or more interested with what I was saying, or if I was able to package it in an interesting way. I don't know, because I don't know if like my personality was funny at all. I don't know if that came across at all. Like I'm having good fun doing it. I'd been kind of goofy doing it, but I don't know if like that was cringy or not. Not many people really commented on that. Maybe it's because like not strong feelings either way. So
Like the face cam looks good. The audio, I think the really important thing is that the audio matches very well between.
this was surprising that you really picked up on it, honed in on it. But it makes sense because you have talked about it before. The audio, I actually initially with this mic, I went to record in my office because I thought it would have nicer recording booths. So well, it sounded awful, it sounded just dreadful. So I recorded here instead. And it's interesting because I didn't really think about the transition too much, but I had to re-record because I just felt like re-recording in front of this camera because I recorded like 2 weeks ago and then it took me forever to edit it. And I was like, okay, by this time I've got other thoughts on it. I'm going to, re-record basically. And this time I was able to make it sound better as well. So it's interesting that you picked up on that, even though I guess I did put a lot of effort because I did re-record and re-edit and all this stuff. So yeah, anyway, I appreciate that you noticed that.
in the recording in the not scripted part, the edited part, and then when he transitions to the face cam, the audio stays the same. It's like a big jarring difference in quality or something. I really like that. But yeah, I have a bunch of production notes here. So I guess
And the reason why it probably sounds so similar is because literally all I'm doing, instead of recording like this over top of my microphone, I'm not going to move it, but like I'm like maybe like an inch or so from my mic. I'm like sitting back and I bring the microphone here to me, and it's basically the same different distance and it's the same environment. So that's why it sounds similar, I guess.
you might
Yeah,
have
I
also,
think about
I
it
love
like
the
that,
one videos. This was fantastic. This might be his high. Let me think. Beyond the Vinland quiz thing, I think it's easily his highest production value he's ever made. I think it's his second. Like in terms of scripted videos, I think this is his highest production I've seen so far. So it's very well executed. I know.
Yeah, you haven't actually seen all my Finland Saga videos. Interesting. I'd be interested to see what your thoughts were, because I didn't really think about, lots of time when I'm making a video, I'm not really thinking like, I'm going to make this really big one, particularly with scripted videos, because how this video comes about is that I think of this one thought. I'm like, okay, I'm going to make a video about that. And then I kind of just pad it out, even though I could easily make like a Twitter post or Reddit post about it. And it'd be done in like an afternoon instead of having to spend ages, making this video. I will say with the ramble, it takes a couple of times, like I'm talking, so what I'll do, I'll ramble into a mirror a couple of times, kind of practice it like again and again and again. I'll talk into the camera, it won't sound so good, but it's interesting because the more you ramble, the more you talk about it, the more you crystallize your thoughts and you're able to kind of get to where you want to pretty quickly and say what you need to pretty quickly. And then you have like half an hour and you edit it down by like 10 minutes or whatever. And when you're repeating yourself and whatnot, and then bingo bongo, it actually works really well. Like it's kind of like scripting it, but not scripting it. Scripting in your brain. So like you're rehearsing the lines in a way.
He was trying to match the quality of his Vinland Finest introduction, and I think he absolutely did. I guess I'll probably talk about it later, but I think the introduction to this is really great. It's even the first one I have. So I said, really cool intro. The music is fantastic. The animated stuff, so the boats moving on the map, what a genius idea. The parallax shot of the hill in the background, where it's a really effective use of like parallax to make it seem 3D, and that is something I'll probably steal from him for a video one day, because I think it's a genius idea. The animation.
Thing is, I feel like I've used that elsewhere. I used it in the Vinland Finest one, actually. I had like a parallax shot in that. Anyway, I didn't really feel like it was that good, but it's interesting, like, to someone who doesn't know like my thought process behind or appearance, just like your perspective of it is completely different to mine, which is, it just feels kind of wild. But it's cool. I appreciate it a lot. Yeah, I guess the boats are really easy to animate. Maybe it's because it felt easier that I didn't feel like it was as big of a deal. But yeah, thanks.
Of Hill eating the sandwich, like it's so intricate. He put a lot of he did a really good job with that.
I kind of should have refined that animation more actually, but anyway.
Anyone can animate panels, but not anyone can do it well. It's very easy to add movement to something and for it to look jarring. Bacon does a good job of making it look natural and making the animation look fluid and not.
I appreciate that.
So I commend him for that. more like production aesthetics things. I like when he's like scrolling, when he's talking about all these other people who would die and all these characters, he does a really cool aesthetic of having them scroll across the screen. It's very unique, I like that.
Basically, like, for lots of it, I'm like, I don't want to do, like, boring panel, because I have to be artistic, whatever. I kind of talk about that at the end of the video, like, in a jokey way. But the thing is that I'm also like, well, how can I efficiently get it on this in the least amount of effort possible? And scrolling works really well. Like, it feels kind of cool, but the thing is that you don't have to worry about don't have to worry about moving these panels, because you've moved them into their position in a 3D environment, and then you just move the camera over top of them, and people are like, whoa, your editing's so good. I feel like I'm taking advantage of maybe a more novel editing technique, and people think it's really hard or tough, or it takes a lot of skill to do, but it doesn't. Just use a 3D camera. That's what I use.
He messes with blurring and stuff as well. That's something I have adopted from Bacon.
That's the thing, like with blurring as well, like that if you have like a camera lens and something, you're able to set the aperture or camera focus, like focal length and stuff like that, and how much stuff is like, at least my editing program, that's what I've really started using over like the last year a lot. It makes things, just scrolling panels look cooler, because I've got like a 3D blurry effect.
Specifically, I really like when he blurs things and messes with that, the foreground and background and all that. His music choices is great. The two that I recognize was Steins Gate and a bunch of Chainsaw Man stuff. It's very well.
Yeah. I was a bit mad, actually, because, not mad, but I was like, oh, Ari's got the Chainsaw Man music before I managed to get in the video, because I was watching Chainsaw Man, I was like, this would be perfect background music for a YouTube video. And then Ari used them, like, I'm on the same page, like, oh, yeah. But yeah, no, I'm a big fan of music. I like starting off, as soon as I've done the voice recording, I plonk music in there before I've done any visuals. And I want to make sure that the music feels right and hits emotional points. That's how I start it, basically. The music is, I want to get the feeling right. And that's generally when I feel fun. And it also helps me picture in my mind what I want to feel at that moment of. So it helps me create the visuals that I want.
He has this really neat trick where he like aligns all the panels, and you're like, zoomed in to see all these panels, and eventually you zoom out and you see that they form the word healed. That's like a stroke of genius there, and how he came up with that. I thought that was really cool.
Do you know how I came up with that? I actually thought it was really janky, but people seem to like it. Like that the panels made healed. It's just like one of those things where you just like, you're doing it and you're like, what happens? Like, healed is a short word. Let's try it. And it's another one of those things, like, I don't want to move the panels around. I want to move the camera around. So then, because the camera, you've only got to worry about animating one thing then, right? Instead of loads of panels shortly. So then I just kind of place them in like a arrangement and then move the camera around them in a way that's hopefully not too jarring. And the camera movement is janky. I haven't really got it down on smooth curves and stuff. You'll notice if you rewatch it again. But here, it's like, oh, that'd be cool. Like transition, and then it ends. And when I'm finding like we're talking about loads of people, show the panels, fill in like, give context visually to what I'm saying vocally, and then bam, healed.
Yeah, and the face cam part was great. But I did question, I wonder how he did it, because to me the audio sounds so similar between the edited part and not the unscripted, the ramble part. And you can't see the microphone in his camera, so I just wonder how far away is it when he's like recording the edited bit, and how far away is it when he's recording the.
Okay, I guess I answered that for you. So let's see if I can get the mic. My stand's like really busted, so it doesn't actually like hold it this way. So I kind of have to have the mic. I'm not going to move the camera, but okay. So let me do it like this. So when I'm recording, I'm like right on top of it, and so that's why I like spend quite a bit of time like trying to EQ the high like mouth moisture noises out. And then when I'm talking, like, I think I managed to get like here, basically, where I'm like about a fist or two away, and it sounds pretty similar. Yeah, and I actually didn't do any EQing or anything on that video. So on the video, so it kind of worked out. And also, time when you do stuff with editing, it just kind of spark of imagination just works.
Like the ramble bit, and like how does he do that? Did he have to like balance the audio post or something? Like it was very well done. Like it was a seamless transition basically, so well done there. So we're actually going on his arguments, I guess. He has a few, so go watch the video, I don't want to spoil any of the arguments, but the first one is point 0.5, which is that healed is likely to die because there are no more likely candidates to die. It's fair enough, I think I agree. He brings up Einar and Thorfinn. His reason for Einar is that Einar is kind of become like a reactionary character, so Einar, he doesn't feel important enough to have a weight to death. So he would have to be built up a bit more to become a candidate for dying. Then he brings up Thorfinn and says it would be ahistorical, I guess, is his big argument that he isn't a good candidate.
No, that's not my argument at all. I'm saying it could be, even if it is ahistorical because of the bug eyes theory. It's like the idea that bug eyes will become the Thorfinn we know of history. That's the theory, at least. I'm not really saying there's a reason why Thorfinn wouldn't want to be killed. it was really a moot point. Yeah, what was my point there even? I was just more like saying, hey, there's these two other characters that people talk about, but I still think that there's a reason why it's 0.5, like, it's not really a full point. It's just like, like, it's not that these characters couldn't die. I just think that Hild's more likely than these characters to die, if that makes sense.
But yeah, fair enough. I guess that makes sense. Yeah, that's good. Then there's point one, which is that Hild is likely to die because Hild has nowhere to grow. She is confident in her worldview, like Thorfinn, Sturk, Sekbik, and Ivar, and she understands Thorfinn's point of view, but she chooses to go another way. So her stubbornness in sticking to who she is, and the fact that she isn't growing, not that she isn't growing, but that she doesn't need to grow, is what makes her likely to die. Now I should say that it is possible I misunderstood this point, because I think of the 3 or 4 points he makes, I think point one is the most exploratory. Where point 5 is very clear, and like Hild is likely to die because there's not more likely characters, and the main point I'll talk about is about like her brain being too big, basically. Those are very defined things that he tries to prove. In this point 1, it kind of feels like a very exploratory, let me just talk about a bunch of points that kind of relate, but not portray like a very clear reason for what I'm saying, why she should die here. Which is interesting, I like it. But that's why I think it's harder to kind of interpret what the point is here. But what do I got? He makes an interesting comparison between Ulmer.
So I think I got a bit confused, which is fine. At point 5, so I was saying that Hild is more likely to die than every other character. That's my first point, half point. This is probably confusing because I had point 1 and I had point 5, I had point 1, and then the main point, which is kind of the idea, because like the whole idea, like the only real point on why Hild must die is because of this plot hole I found, basically. I thought it was kind of funny. Okay, so point 5, I'm saying basically Hild makes sense because she's an independent party. She's likely to die because she's, being a big focus. She's being provocative. I'm not saying that Thorfinn won't die, but I'm saying that Hild is more likely to die than him and Einar, in my opinion. So I think you could probably put Thorfinn on the same level. And the fact that Einar did have that conversation with Thorfinn saying that, oh, I don't want to run, or like, what happens when we can't run? I do imagine Einar may just stay and die next to Arnid and be like, well, what's the point, or whatever. I don't know. Like, that could happen. Like, it all could happen. That's why it's a weaker point, because it's like, it's not necessarily like definitive evidence for anything. The second point, right, which is point 1, confusingly, is the arc's emotional flashpoint, which is basically saying that, like, it's like Hild is going to be in the middle of the storm when it happens at Vinland, and in the past, lots of these characters that have done this have died. There's a high death count for those who make these flashpoint decisions in an arc. My examples being Arnid and Askeladd, or Ashklad, or whatever you want to say. That's the idea, because I didn't actually really make the point of like decisions that Askeladd made. So I kind of made, this is the issue with when I had like the moving camera, because I didn't make the points as clear. But like in the voiceover, but Askeladd like killing the soldier and then choosing to do this like thing with Prince Canute, and then also him doing another decision, which was, oh, I'm going to go through Mercia, which is another key decision that Askeladd makes. And then you could also argue like killing King Sven is the final like flashpoint in a way. But the war arc also doesn't really make an easy status quo. A nice comfy status quo. So this is another thing with like Arnid and Olmar, is that like Arnid makes that decision of like going, choosing to go care after Garda. That's the big twist, not twist, but that's her being her like happy life and downfall in a way, and then Olmar trying to get the pig as well. That's the kind of the idea. When it's not as nearly as clean as I make it, but then you also have like independent parties like in the Baltic. See, what I'd say the flashpoint for that is actually Garm killing Vargan, because that sets off Thorkel, and like it's basically like what feels like the first domino that's pushed. And we have already had one really with Ivar killing off the hand of Miss Hegby, but I'm not saying that Hild wouldn't be able to contribute to that as well, because we have had arcs before where there is like multiple flashpoints. Yeah, basically.
Ulmer and Arnid. Oh, Arnid. Oh my god, I said Arnid. Oh, it's like the good old days. And Ivar and Hild, where you've got the warmongering man in Ulmer and Ivar, and then you've got the war traumatized woman in Arnid and Hild. And we know, and he basically says we know how it turned out once, so maybe it'll turn out like this again. Another very interesting, good point. Or maybe he could subvert it and go the other way, it'd be interesting as well. Okay. Then he has the main point, which is that Hild will die because her mind is world-breaking. She invents technology far before her time. She is more world-breaking than Thorkel punching a horse, Javet's giant head, Sekbik's mysticism, and Ymir. And it's interesting. He, like, on its own, this, like, I don't know how to even express this without going to the next thing. Like, right, keep that in mind. That's his argument. Makes sense. It's interesting. But then in the addendum, he basically tries to win over the audience, which is a good idea to do, because he points out how saying that, oh, Hild is anachronistic, so she has to die, feels like a technicality. And this is a very cool thing to acknowledge to the audience, because if you don't, they're going to be thinking in their mind that it's a technicality, and they're going to dismiss your argument for that reason. But if you acknowledge it, they're going to reframe the video as kind of like a fun exploration into a bunch of arguments for Hild's death, and not like a serious plot kind of framing of the video, which could be interpreted.
I like how you thought about that, and it's like, maybe not something that's super conscious in my mind, but it is like, I know this argument, if someone said to me in the Reddit, I'd be like, well, that's kind of dumb. I don't really. That's not really gonna argue me over, basically. But yeah, no, like, because I thought about it, I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. And you have a bit of a history lesson with like, oh yeah, she is like very, very much like Da Vinci and like the stuff that is shown to know and stuff.
Like it's another framing.
Yeah.
So like it kind of frames it as like Bacon isn't trying to have a serious heated argument on objectivity or anything. He just thinks it's a very an interesting, fun idea to convey.
Yeah.
And I think it was a good idea to add this addendum, I think. But yeah, so the idea itself is interesting. Hilda is anachronistic. But I guess I do agree with Bacon as well in the addendum where it's like, I don't know, I could see her going off and living on her own, or she becomes like a crazy woman who everyone's like, oh, she's crazy, she invents all these weird things, and she like,
Yeah,
that all the villagers
precisely.
but yeah, generally great video. I liked it. I also wrote that his transition from the edited part to the face cam part, I thought that was amazing. Like the music, the jokes, like the cutoff of like, oh, chapter 1, 200 or whatever. It's like, oh, I made it 6 weeks ago. I'm like, man, this is awesome.
I'm glad you like that. That's funny. Yeah.
Great. And then I have one miscellaneous note, which is that you can check this, but I said at 4 minutes, he points out a paralleled panel between Sichlitt and Hild, where they're both like looking to the side, and they're both making like strong statements about how determined they are to see things through. And that's something I'd never noticed before. Maybe it's mentioned to me and I forgot it, but what a cool like pick up to show how these two characters are paralleled. I thought that was awesome. So that's it. Hild Must Die by Jockey Bacon. Go watch it if you're a Villain fan. It's a great video. But what am I saying? Of course, if you're watching me, watch this and you're a Villain fan. Of course you do.
Yeah. So that last point, yeah, that's like the first thing I noticed with that panel. It's just one of those things that like you get into your brain enough, and you just sometimes see panels are there. I would have thought I would have brought it up in our discussion, because but I know I definitely mentioned it to Myre, and Myre was like, "Oh yeah, I saw that too," and all that stuff in the Villain Discord and stuff like that. So yeah, well, thank you so much, everybody. I hope this was somewhat helpful and interesting. Maybe I'll do more of this in the future. I don't know. Maybe I'll go back to making long comments on your videos, because I feel like those are a bit more out of passion. Like I'm able to get my initial thoughts out there very quickly rather than doing this. But anyway, if you guys liked it or not, let me know. Yeah, I'll see you next time on YouTube Yammerings. Woo! Bye bye.